ultimate victim of this abuse, a pregnant woman. This entire video is the perfect setup to take a man down. I think something important for this debate is defining what abuse is. The definition of abuse is to use something to bad effect or for bad purpose, to misuse something. And within relationships, abuse is generally considered to mean treating either another person with violence, cruelty, harm, or force. Holding someone accountable is not abuse. An employer telling his employee to do better, to be worthy to work for him, is not abuse. Telling someone that they need to have discipline and respect is not abuse. A parent telling their kid to do better in school or in sports is not abuse. Getting frustrated and raising your voice is not abuse. None of those qualify as treating another person with violence, cruelty, harm, or force. And nobody should bat an eye if anybody, male or female, says these kinds of things. Nobody should be concerned if somebody asks another person to be disciplined and respectful. But when a man corrects a woman, even though our society says they believe that men and women are equal and should be given equal treatment, suddenly the man is the abuser and the wife is the victim. Hillary Crowder signed up for Steven Crowder. She freely married him. No one doubts that he is a driven, intense, engaged man. He drives his employees hard. He drives himself hard. But when his drive and his focus is turned on his wife, and he also wants her to live up to the promises she freely made him, to support him and to do her wifely duties as they both agreed as Christians, he's deemed an abuser. I think the real question here is whether a woman can fail as a wife. Is it part of patriarchal oppression of women to say that there are obligations and responsibilities involved in being a wife? Can you just walk away from a commitment that you made to a man freely for life with no consequences, just because it isn't working for you anymore? I don't think men are given that choice. Women need to be held accountable. Can it be too harsh? Yes. Can women and men get themselves into situations where they're too far over their head with marriage and kids and everything else? Yes. But both men and women need to be honest when they get into that kind of situation and not blame the other partner for emotional abuse. It shouldn't be allowed for a woman to go nuclear on her husband because our society gives that option to women as an easy out. When you get overwhelmed, when you're failing and you can't handle the guilt that you feel from failing, you just blame your husband and you go nuclear on him. I think in essence, we can either look at this situation one of two ways. You take the video on its own and you see a frustrated man trying to hold his wife accountable for responsibilities that she agreed to, and her refusing to listen to him and walking out. If you take this video in the full context of the situation, you see a woman who checked out from this relationship months ago, wound her husband up at his most vulnerable moment before a major surgery, saved a clip for 2 years, and after he told his audience about their divorce because it was increasingly becoming public and was going to be used against him, dropped that clip to a scumbag journalist to try to destroy her husband's name. Either way, he's the innocent one, and she is not. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your opening statement there, Grace. So over to you, Ben. You got 8 minutes left there for your opening statement. Thanks for being here.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan. I don't have so much a prepared speech as what I want to point out here, and it takes a few viewings to see, but there are major things that are missed when this narrative is told, sympathetic to the wife here. The first and major one is that 4 days after this Nest video occurred, Steven Crowder went in for elective surgery. Now, elective surgery just means non-emergency surgery. The surgery that was performed involved cutting his sternum, I think, open and inserting titanium bars to prevent his chest from collapsing. And for them to schedule that only a month before his wife is to give birth means it was a dire situation. So to say that she's pregnant and in a vulnerable health situation, he is also, although you can't see it, it's not the type of thing you see, but he said on a video that his heart was pumping only at about 50% what it should be pumping at. Secondly, this was during COVID. And another thing that's odd that no one's really noticed is that he says if she leaves, he won't be able to be here and he won't be able to make calls. What he's talking about is post-surgery. And I've known friends. I know a friend who had this surgery, and I've seen online people talk about this. You can't even raise your hand to make a phone call. Okay. And she has no reason to walk out. I mean, there's obviously a problem, but what she's doing is hitting him at his most vulnerable time. But it looks like he's just kicking back and enjoying a cigar. There are many, 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 many things like this. Another thing that I just found out yesterday, I was like, I wonder how long you have to be married to get alimony, which is an important thing for someone who's deciding to bolt. The answer in the state of Texas is 10 years. And the smartest way to file for divorce would be to do it before the 10 years, because the 10 years includes up till, so she filed at the end of the 9th year. So she could say, oh, no, I wasn't doing it for that reason. But it really looks like a setup. And Kyle is going to say women can't do 9D chess. Believe me, I believe that women can be quite smart and quite crafty. It's not 9D chess to set up a man in the way that Steven Crowder was set up by his wife, Hillary. And the real question, as Grace said, is in our society, can women ever be held accountable for anything? Can women fail? Or is it always that they have some sort of problem or some sort of mental illness that a man has to, or their father or their husband or someone, it's always got to be someone else's fault. And I actually think to say that women should be able to be held accountable and should be able to find solutions to problems is actually a feminist point. And anyone who says that women can't and a pregnant woman can't do things, and I know that both Steven and Kyla have actually taken quite moderate positions on this, probably the two most moderate positions of all people I've seen react to it. Yes, they see this, but they nevertheless, even though they see there's a lot here we don't know, where they don't know something, they skew against the man. And I think they have no grounds to do so based on the evidence. And all of it points to it being skewed against her. One major point here, because I've gone through a similar thing in my own life, is that I think you may have a problem here that's on a very, very deep level. And divorce is a problematic solution to that problem. My conjecture is that Hillary Crowder had serious impediments when she got married. I don't know that, but it seems to be implied when Steven Crowder says we're going to release all the mental health stuff. I think she had a problem with this. I think she got overwhelmed, and it's really, really hard for women. And I think this is a fault in our society, especially traditional women, to admit that they're over their heads. And it's really easy and really tempting for them to just blame the spouse and play the victim. And I don't think we're doing men or women any favors by automatically assuming that the man's to blame. I've encountered, I haven't been on the internet that long, but I've encountered so many young men who are saying a relationship with a female, short-term, medium-term, long-term, is a nightmare. And there's becoming an increasing argument, an increasingly rational argument, which I did not think was possible, that really it's not worth it on any level to deal with females, because you're setting yourself up like Steven Crowder got set up here. I don't think Steven Crowder regrets having his children. I don't think Steven Crowder regrets what he got into. But you can see how the argument can be made, and women need to start making the other argument that we will be held accountable. We're not going to do this to men. Maybe that's what's going on here. I don't have omniscience any more than anyone else, but situations like this do happen. And this was not about going and getting the groceries and how many cars they had. This was a woman leaving her husband and leaving her responsibilities, never to come back. while it looks like groceries. I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your intro statement, Grace and Ben. So yeah, it looks like our mods are back in the chat there. Sorry, everybody, but I've only got so much access right now to the platform, which is a ton. But we're going to kick it over to the other side here. Who would like to start on your side?
I don't care. Do you want to go first or want me to go first, Kyla?
6 of these. Go ahead and pick
All
one.
right. Destiny's going to take the floor. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. And floor is all yours, Destiny.
Yeah, sure. So I think that there are kind of like 5 things that I would focus on for why I would call the situation here pretty clearly abusive from Stephen Crowder's perspective. And I think I would have to be presented with an insane amount of contrary evidence to override these 5 points. So the first point is her ability to leave this situation, both the marriage and immediately, like the actual balcony, is insanely compromised. She has a serious health event going on right now, which is being pregnant with twins. And from what we've heard later, Stephen apparently has the ability to completely cut her off financially from her means of existing. So it sounds like she's probably not working right now. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it seems like through the course of this, one reason why I would say this seems abusive from Stephen Crowder's end is he seems completely unwilling to work together to try to figure out a compromise to the problem. He refuses to try to compromise on the car thing. When she wants to take the car, he doesn't let her. When she offers to call a friend, he tells her instead that she needs to call an Uber. It seems like he doesn't have any desire here to actually work together with her to figure out a fix to the problem. For the third part, I feel like his tone is needlessly derisive, contemptuous, and insanely aggressive. With multiple statements like, you give up so easily, you have no respect, the only way out of this is discipline and respect, I don't love you, I've never received love from you, become a wife worthy. These aren't statements that you make to somebody that you love, that you're trying to work out a problem with. These are statements you make when you're trying to tear somebody down and attack them and leave them psychologically weak and vulnerable for you to exploit or manipulate. These are not things that you say to a wife that you love, who you genuinely hope or sincerely wish to work out any of your problems with. The fourth thing is, feels like in this fight, something you commonly see in abusive situations, is he's not really trying to figure out how to solve the problem, but instead sometimes he even seems spiteful or like he's wanting to get even with her. When he points out that he is going to be locked at home away from the car, rather than expressing that as an actual interest and saying like, hey, I'd like to be able to do something, I'd like to be able to go to the gym, like maybe we can work out a different plan for the schedule, he says, feeling some constraints, and then he starts to list the things he can't do. Feels like he's more interested in kind of like throwing jabs and getting even than actually figuring out a solution to their problems. And then for the fifth thing, the fact that when she tries to leave after saying multiple times that she wants to take space, she literally says, I need space. She's unable to leave. Even when she gets up to leave, he gets up, chases her inside the house, gives her the leash and says, walk the dog, put on some gloves and walk the dog.
All right, we're going to kick it over to NotSoErudite. Thank you so much for your opening statement there, Destiny. And just want to remind everybody in the live chat that all of our guests are linked in the description. So if you like what you're hearing from any of our speakers, you can check them out in our description. So NotSoErudite, I think you have still 9 minutes on the clock. So floor is all yours.
Great. I probably won't use that entire amount. Basically, what I'd say here is we saw a 3-minute video or an interaction where clearly unhealthy things are happening, right? I think if you take the video just at face value, Stephen looks like a giant raging POS. He looks like an awful partner. He's not supportive. He's uncompromising, very, very controlling, says some pretty nasty things. Doesn't look good for Stephen. The issue that we have to like remind ourselves in the context of this conversation is the reality that we're seeing a 3-minute video, which means taking a really, really strong opinion one direction or the other on like he is clearly an abuser and always has been in their relationship, or he clearly is not an abuser and never has been, is to me just kind of insane. They have a 9-year marriage. We're seeing 3 minutes of it, right? All of the outside context that's going on around this video. For example, is this interaction the worst interaction that they've ever had? Is this actually one of the best interactions they've ever had? Would completely skew how abusive or not abusive we find the individuals. I think a lot of times when we see like really toxic interactions, which Stephen did a good job of outlining, many of Crowder's toxic interactions with his wife, we immediately want to jump to like using the abuse word, and there are abusive behaviors within this. The issue is that that's not enough to establish abusive pattern. It's also not enough though to just say it's clearly not abusive. I think that that's just a pretty extreme claim, and I think we just need a lot more evidence to really, really clearly make one decision or the other about like the dynamic of their entire relationship.
thank you everybody for those opening statements. We can kick it up into open discussion. I do know that there's a couple other screen shares that we wanted to get to, so we'll get to those as they come along. Just remind everybody in the live chat, we are doing a Q&A at the end of all of this, so if you have a question for any of our speakers related to the subject, not attacks against our speakers, they're here on their own time, we want to respect them. If you got questions for them, please fire it in the live chat for super chats and we'll read them at the end. All right, so open discussion. We'll kick it over to the yes side to kick off our open discussion. Thanks, guys.
We're the
well,
yes side, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I start this just by saying, so the opposition seems to be saying, look, we can't say that he is an abuser, but we can say this displays abusive behavior. That was Erudite's point, and then Stephen followed it up by listing what the toxic behaviors were that he saw. Okay, he said she was unable to leave the situation, both the marriage, and she was immediately unable to leave the situation. That's not true. He lets her go. He lets her take the car. He doesn't physically threaten her at all. The cutting off of her access to finances was an allegation made by her family in a statement that was full of lies, and she was completely legally free to leave the marriage. So to say that it's toxic behavior in the sense that it's controlling, that's not true. That's just flatly not true. The first example you gave was that he does not control her. She is free to leave both the marriage and immediately that situation.
Okay, yeah. So on this first point, I think we have to have a bit more of a sophisticated understanding of what it means to control somebody and to control space. There's a difference between saying a person physically is not capable of leaving an area because the other person is going to fight them to the death on it versus trying to impose some level of physical intimidation to manipulate the person from leaving the area. I would say that when she's clearly uncomfortable, she clearly says she needs to get space and she's trying multiple times to get space. For her to get up and go to the door and for Stephen Crowder to get up and chase her is him trying to physically impose himself on her to keep her from leaving. Now, whether she's ultimately allowed to leave, I don't know how long after this she did leave. I don't know if any of us know the answer to that. I would say that is a hallmark of an abusive behavior is when a partner clearly wants to put space between you and them and you physically impose yourself to make them unable to do so.
When did he physically impose himself to keep her from being able to leave? He never did.
When she got up to leave, he gets up to chase her and hands her the leash and tells her to walk the dog.
But he doesn't stop her from going anywhere. She walked right by him several times and right out the door and right out of his life.
After he handed her the leash, she came back to the balcony to walk the dog.
So she walked the dog? She didn't walk the dog. She left. They had a discussion in the kitchen and she left.
She fled.
Nobody's
never came back.
Nobody's saying that she walked the dog. What we're saying is that every time that she physically moved around, he would get up and essentially insert himself physically in spaces as she was trying to.
Okay,
leave.
but you're inaccurate. He did not physically prevent her from anything. You could say he psychologically did.
Can we replay the video, just the ending part, the last 20 seconds?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay, while you get that up,
Substack page sucks so much.
Just going to remind everybody that we are going to be uploading these to our podcasts within 24 hours of having these discussions, so definitely check us out on your favorite podcast forums. We're going to review the video again, so yeah, if you want to keep your screen share up and carry on.
Okay, so at the end,
let's establish a couple things before we watch this. Do we all agree that she wants to leave the house at this point? Do we agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We agree that she doesn't want to walk the dog, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Stephen Crowder doesn't want
her to give the dog his medication.
Sure. And Stephen Crowder doesn't want her to leave the house, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen Crowder does want her to leave. Does want her to walk the dog and give her the medication, right? These are our two conflicts, right? It's her leaving the house.
I think we all agree on that.
Okay, cool. All right. So then let's watch what happens here.
Okay.
Day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not going to engage.
She says she doesn't want to engage. She says she wants to go. Go ahead.
Where is he blocking her, Stephen? Where is he physically intimidating her?
We're still playing.
Where? She's free to leave.
We're getting there. We've all watched the video.
I love you. I'm committed to you.
Are you committed?
Now he gets up. He tells her to put on gloves because he doesn't want her to leave. Okay. But she's trying to leave.
Imposing.
I did. Okay, just keep watching. We're watching till the end. We got 30 seconds left.
Yeah, let's finish it up. And then
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything.
She fully leaves, and he's still
He
sitting.
follows after her, Stephen.
Correct. He does. That's what I just said. Thank you.
Correct.
So he
Yes.
follows
He's not
after her.
blocking her. You said
Okay.
she
Well, then
was
let's see
not
what
free
happens.
to leave.
Sure. Let's see what happens. So he
okay.
follows her to the door. She's trying to leave. What happens next?
She has the keys in her
Said I
hand.
love you. I'm committed.
Okay. And what happens?
Walk the dogs, put on some gloves.
I need to.
Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are
He
you
brings her
committed
back
enough
outside.
He brings her back. She freely came back to get the
You put-
keys. I guess
you
she
did-
He
didn't.
don't-
went and
we
chased her,
don't-
and now she's picking up the leash to walk the dog.
She walked right by him, picked up the leash, and then she goes back out. You
So,
could see.
Stephen, you are wrong. There is no physical intimidation here. You could
He
say there's
wa-
psychological, but there is no physical.
He literally
blocking
physically
of her.
moves. I didn't say he blocked her. He brought her
You
back
said
out there.
physically.
He-
You can say
yeah,
psychologically.
no,
not
psychologically.
physically.
Psychologically would be him shouting at her, right? Verbally. But he gets up to the door to physically impose against her to bring her back out here.
Let's
Right?
finish
You
up-
can play
Where
to
do
the
you-
end.
let's finish up these last
Okay.
20
Sure.
minutes so we can stop the screen share.
Are you committed enough to do anything?
I'm gonna just.
Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the gloves? Don't you
She
think
walks
it's a good-
right by him.
Right by him again.
And now, yeah, she walks right by him. But now, one, we see Steven go inside the house. And apparently, this video says that they get angry and angry. And he says, I will fuck you up. So him
Okay.
chasing her into the house, why not sit here and let her leave? The fact that he followed her into the house shows that he's trying to be physically imposing to get her to do what he wants her to do.
Following someone is physically blocking them from
Oh,
leaving.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Continuing a conversation is
When a
pursuing
partner
someone to
is
continue
trying-
a conversation. With
Yeah,
someone.
when a
Yes.
partner, hold on, this is an
No, it is
opinion. This
not.
is just, sure,
No.
this isn't an opinion. This is a fact. If somebody's trying to leave and you're getting up to follow them to continue a conversation that they're trying to disengage from, yes,
Yeah.
that's trying to use a physical imposition to force
That's
them to follow
physical,
through.
Stephen.
Yes, it is.
It's not
If you're
physical.
moving-
He
if
was
you're
not
moving-
physically
No,
blocking.
you're
her.
trying to continue the
you're-
conversation. Yes.
If you're moving your material, so say me and Nick were having a fight, and I said, you know what? And actually, I'll give it for you guys. He says, you know what, Kyla, I need some space. And so I don't grab him, but I follow him around the house. I keep trying to pressure him to come back in and do
Right.
things within the household. There's a physical element to that. Because
Oh,
if I
God.
wasn't being physical at all, if I was just being psychological, I would stay in this room. And while Nick walked away, I'd be yelling at him like, you effing whatever, and then maybe threatening him to try
So
to
would it be abusive if you followed him into another room to pursue a conversation? Would that be you physically abusing your husband? Physically preventing him?
Nobody,
Hold on, no one
Nobody-
said there was
Yes, that's
physical
exactly
abuse.
You
what
said
Steven
physical
said.
prevention.
He said
Physically
he is
preventing
cutting
you
off
from
her
leaving.
ability to leave.
Okay.
Stop
I'm
lying
sorry.
here.
Okay. I think I've triggered you with the word physical. So we can try to come
No,
across
don't
some
say
other
that.
word. Well, you're
you were
getting
wrong.
triggered.
Don't say I'm
No,
triggered.
no. He wasn't verbally abusing her. He wasn't psychologically abusing her. He got up to physically insert himself into an area to control what she was doing. Now,
In
I
order
can't
to have
say,
a conversation, you have to be physically in the area, Stephen.
no, you don't. He could have shouted at her from the balcony. He could have let her
was-
go.
So it's abuse
was
to
in-
pursue someone who's leaving and say, "Hey, can we talk?" That's
It
was
is
in
an
the
it
doorway.
is-
that's
She walked
physical
right by him.
abuse.
It is.
Give me a break.
Let's let Grace
Okay.
speak for a minute here. Sorry.
Oh well, I'll let Stephen go. But he was in the doorway. He was physically in the situation. She walked right by him, and then she walked past him. Then she got in her car and left, like they said, like she herself said.
You don't know how long after this did she get into the car and leave?
Well, nobody knows that. But
Then why
that's
do you
what
keep
she
saying
says.
that? I don't know why you keep saying that. Because she
well,
might have left.
did-
She might have left 12 hours later or the next day. Did she even leave this day? I don't know why you
Okay,
keep
but now
saying
it's
that.
Well,
just
let's let
conjecture
her
based
answer.
on
No,
the
it is-
video.
Whoa. Hold on. It's not conjecture based on the video. You're the one that's bringing up, oh, well, look, she left. That's your conjecture. I'm not saying that at all.
No.
What? Yes, that's your
No.
Yes.
conjecture.
Look at the edit. It's her edit, obviously, because she's the only one who would know this. She puts an edit at the end, and it says, after this, she fled the home. When he said, I'm going to fuck you up, and I know exactly what he meant. There has never been any physical violence. He meant, if you do this to me, if you leave and do this to me, I am going to make your life hard.
Sure.
That's what he meant by
Okay,
that.
that's fine.
But that's
But
her
no, wait.
edit.
Hold on.
Steven,
That's
that's
fine.
her
That's
edit.
fine. That's fine. But you guys saying she left immediately after, you don't know that. We're just talking about
It
what's in the
says
video.
right there. Go
No,
back. We're
so,
gonna do this.
okay, hold on.
It says
I-
she fled the
if I could
home
bridge.
after he said that.
I can
let's
bridge.
let Erudite in here, okay?
All Stephen is trying to point out is that we don't know the time from when the video ends to when she physically exits the house and gets in the vehicle. There's a lot of conjecture required to assume when she leaves. So you guys are saying she just left immediately, but it sounds like what happened is that she went inside and then she felt threatened if we take the text at face value, and then she ran away from him while he was chasing her, right? So like we don't fully know the details of how she left is all he's trying to point out. Whereas you guys were saying she's leaving right there. See, she wasn't physically intimidated. We don't know how soon after that video ending to the point of when she actually exited the house.
It was clearly within the same interaction, though. Whether it was
you
a half
don't know
hour
that.
later,
We don't.
45
That's
minutes
not
later.
clear.
You have no
That's
idea.
not
She
clear.
might have
She
left 10 hours
says
later.
that in the video. Are we on the same planet?
They got angrier,
Where?
angrier. Then
Show
she.
me.
then
Wait,
he
okay.
said, "I'm a
Okay.
fucking
Hold on.
Show him. Show him.
Yes. Both. We're gonna. Yeah. Tell me where it says she
The
left
last
immediately after.
too few frames. She says it.
Let's bring up the screen share again. We'll try
All right, give me
to
one
keep
second.
everybody, if everybody could prevent themselves just for a few minutes from injecting, and we'll really pay attention to what's happening in the video. I know there was a lot of commentary going on the last time we watched it, so let's just see if we can focus on what you guys are highlighting there. So
Okay.
whenever
I'll
you're
just
ready
play
with
the last
screen
couple
share.
seconds.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you, and the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it, you go, no, but I love you more than life itself. Okay, put on some gloves.
Sorry.
No, but I love you more than life.
I love you.
Just go to the last
I
like 5
commit
seconds.
to you. I need to
Walk the dog.
Steven,
Are you committed enough to do those things?
I,
Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm gonna just.
Walk the dog. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dog's? No, you take Betty.
Okay.
Okay, so just to check that we're on the same page, can we all agree that at some point Hillary leaves the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the
and we
end of the conversation.
Okay. We don't know specifically when she left the house, that we don't know
Yes,
like
we
the time
do.
or anything.
After he, by his own admission, screams, "I will fuck you up," at his pregnant wife, Hillary, who then flees their home. You're telling me this could be days later?
It might be.
No.
I'm just saying it might be later
That's
than
a
that. If you want,
ridiculous
if you want, we can say that. Sure. If you want, we can say that she leaves the house within 30 minutes. If you really want that, it still doesn't.
I'm
seem,
not.
it
I'm
still
just
doesn't
saying
change.
this is all part of one interaction.
Sure.
And the end of it,
Sure.
she left. That's
Sure.
obviously true,
Sure.
and you're
Okay,
denying
sure.
it.
If you want that, that's fine. But it still
No,
doesn't
it's
change any.
true.
Okay.
It's true.
We don't know the length. All
I need
he's
to
saying
hold
is
on.
we don't know the
Moderator,
length.
I have to be able to finish a thought without him interjecting. Okay.
His thought there,
Okay.
everybody, if we can.
If you want, we can say that he left or that she left 30 minutes later. That's fine. We can grant that, but it still doesn't change anything that I said before. You trying to physically impose yourself to keep somebody from leaving and then being able to leave doesn't mean you didn't try to do that.
Yes, it does. He did not physically impose himself to keep her from leaving. He did not block the doorway. He was sitting for most of it. She had the keys in her hand. He did not physically prevent her from leaving. Now, you can say psychologically he was doing that. That's fine. But physically, no. And we know that even her propaganda denied that there was ever any physical abuse.
Okay. Have you guys ever worked with like cattle or animals or anything like that? Ever watched cattle
No.
dogs work?
A
Okay.
little.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about vaguely.
So you know how they'll push cows along almost exclusively without touching them, right? They'll just get like big and kind of put their body pressure in different locations.
Yes.
Yes.
So are you saying that cowboys are psychologically coercing cows to move, or do you think they're using their physical bodies as like kind of like physically coercing cows to move in different directions? They're using their presence, their size, maybe the loudness of their body. Would you agree to that? Can we
Yes,
call
of
that
course.
physical? Can we call that physical coercion?
Yes, with the threat
Okay.
of violence, with
Great,
the
so
threat of
that's-
violence, and that's how those cows learn to move because they are bitten by those dogs.
Sure. So that's what we're talking about is obviously Stephen isn't biting them, Stephen being Crowder. But what we're talking about is when he's getting up and he's moving into her space and he's a larger physical being, even though he's not physically touching them, there is an element of physical coercion and pressure there.
No, there is not. I know what I would do if I wanted to block her. I'd stand in the doorway.
Right. He lets her walk right past him, like twice.
He gets up and follows her into the kitchen. She is the alpha in that position, that situation.
She's the alpha.
She
she's okay.
exhibiting power by taking the keys and moving in the direction of the
Yeah.
exit of the house, obviously.
And
Okay.
he's
When
following her.
when you are trying to placate somebody who is clearly the aggressor and you're trying to create space, you're saying, I love you, I just want to leave, I need space, and you're withdrawing into the home and somebody else is pursuing you, there is no world in which the person fleeing there is perceived as the alpha. She's
Yes,
clearly trying
she
to
had the
create
power.
space.
She was
Let me
saying,
finish my
"I'm outta
sentence. Let me
here."
finish my sentence.
Sure.
She's clearly trying to create space. She's clearly uncomfortable with the situation. She's clearly trying to placate him from getting increasingly angry. And as soon as she actually manages to take physical space by going inside the house and not having the continued exchange outside, he physically gets up and follows her to continue the conversation that she clearly doesn't want to take part in.
Yes, right. She doesn't want to take part of it in something. Are you saying that if someone doesn't want to take part in something, there's no such thing as like the silent treatment, that withdrawing can be a power move? Are you saying that? And leaving a situation with no resolution can't be an aggressive move?
Are you saying that it's never an aggressive move to chase and pursue somebody who says they aren't comfortable having a conversation?
Yeah, chasing someone with like a gun, yes.
So if you're not chasing them with a
Pursuing
gun,
someone,
so if
he's
you're not
the one who
pursuing with
wants
a
to
weapon-
continue to engage.
Yes, but she doesn't want to.
He's not threatening violence. He's applying
No.
pressure to her with his physical presence to convince her and coerce her to stay rather than respecting her wishes, right? He's not grabbing her because I'm going to guess that he probably doesn't physically abuse her, right? But he is using his physical pressure to impose. Yes, getting in somebody's physical space, even if you let them move past you, is physical pressure. It is physical coercion.
It's psychological pressure. He's using his tone of voice. I'll admit that. The
Does she
idea
have a
that he
right-
blocked her and that she wasn't the aggressor here is ridiculous.
Does she have a
Ridiculous.
right to not carry on that conversation?
Legally, does she have a right to?
No, morally. Does she have a right to step away from that conversation if she feels like it's too heated?
There are situations in which someone needs to resolve a situation. Yes,
Did
there are.
it feel
sometimes
like
when
there was
someone
something
doesn't
there?
have a moral right.
Does it feel like in that case that there was something that required an immediate resolution? Or could this conversation have been put
Yeah,
off
it was right. And I'll tell you something else about that little video. That is, I'm not saying.
Why are we pivoting? I'm asking a very simple question. Does she have the right to walk away from that conversation? Say, I'm not comfortable continuing this conversation right now. I want to take space. Does she have the right to do that?
Did she have a right to walk away from their marriage
We're not
forever
talking about
and
walking
then
away from
attack
the
him
marriage.
It's space.
from
It's
afar?
a conversation.
You're pivoting. You're
She
pivoting.
did not have that right.
She did. So you don't think she had a right to walk away from that conversation?
Not. Temporarily could be understandable, but she should have come back, and there's no evidence that she
We
did.
didn't have
And
any
she's been
evidence.
attacking him from afar
but
ever
you-
since then.
You try to make it sound like she just wants a little bit of space. She says, I need space, I need time, I'll be back when I'm back. Does somebody have a right when you're married to them to just say, I'll be back when I'm back, I'm taking space? No, that's why it was unresolved. That's why he's saying, well, we at least have to work something out here. She does not have the right to do that.
Why do
Depending
you-
on the severity of the fight, you absolutely
Yeah.
always have the right to take space. Of course.
No, you
In-
do not. There are
What-
situations in which you have to you have to resolve something. I'm not sure in that situation, but I'll tell you what else this looks like. It looks like the perfect setup. She played to that camera and she used things that will look a certain way in court and in the public eye, and you could tell he's totally confused by what she's doing. I think this was a planned thing. I can't prove that, but it looks a lot like it. She's
Can I just go
triggering
back
him
to,
right to the camera.
okay, I'm not going to go there with you yet. Can we just go back to, does she have the right? So you guys agree that if she needed like a 2-hour timeout, that would be okay. You guys agree to that?
Yeah, you could take some space, yeah.
But if she
not if
say-
you've been doing this for 9 years. No.
But you don't know if she has been. You don't have
don't
that
know.
context.
Well, you were saying, is this an absolute rule? And my answer is no. It depends on the context.
I'm
Okay,
saying that in
great.
general, there are circumstances where maybe not, but I would generally side with somebody saying, I want to take space. That's totally fine.
Right. Do you guys think it's fair that when you're taking space, especially in a heated argument, you might not give an exact time of when you'll be back? You might just say, I'll be back when I'm back. And that could mean 2 weeks, but it could also reasonably mean 2 hours, 4
Okay.
hours. Would you guys
What
agree to
about
that?
if
Hold on. I just need you to answer that. Would you guys agree that her in a heated moment saying, I'll be back when I'm back, doesn't necessarily imply that she's
2 weeks
gone?
would
First
be
of all, she's
unbelievable
not
if he's
heated.
coming,
She's
if he's
not
going through
heated.
surgery in 4 days. That's
Okay.
an unbelievable insult to him.
I'm going to ask again. Do you guys think we can quibble about whether she's heated or not after? If somebody is heated, it's reasonable for them to just say, I'll be back when I'm back and not give a firm deadline. Is that
No,
reasonable?
I do not. I think that's
No,
that
you
could
said
it could
12.
be
You
abusive.
said if it's
It could
2
easily
weeks.
be
No,
abusive.
that's not reasonable.
Okay, so it's never reasonable
It's
to
a
just
power
say,
move. It's
I'll
a
be
power
back when
move.
I'm back.
No, I don't think that's reasonable to do to your husband for 9 years who's going in for surgery and who has an extremely stressful job. I do not think that's reasonable.
So
No.
you are obligated at all points in time to
No,
be
you're
there.
changing it. You guys are changing it. You're
No, hold
you're
on.
being
Grace
sneaky
just said
here.
that you're not. Hold on. There's nothing sneaky. All we're
Yeah, it
trying
was.
to do is figure out if you have a right to take space when you are uncomfortable in a situation. And it sounds like both of you
course
guys
you
are.
do.
I
Of course
think
you do.
Grace misspoke, and she's because you guys are playing this game
Not
because
if you
you're more
said not-
sophisticated. So you at first said, "Is it always right to do that?" And we said no.
Is
and
it
then you said,
okay?
"So it's never right to do that." And she said she bit for your little trick.
Well, because
why don't we
all we
stop
need-
with the bullshit and just
Yeah.
say there are times that when yes, and there are times when no.
Cool. That's all we're trying to say. There might
No,
be
it is
times.
not. You're trying to play games. With
Can I finish a
words.
sentence? When you don't let me finish, it's because
Steven,
you
you're
know
not
your
a
point is
victim
weak.
Let's
here.
let Steven talk.
I didn't say I
please.
was a victim, but I'm saying that when you don't let me
Yes, you
finish,
did.
it's because you know you have a weak argument, right? Which is fine. I understand.
Wrong. That's
Your
not
argument is the
true.
same. Yes, it is. So we're just trying to say that it is permissible, at least sometimes, that if you are feeling stressed, if you feel like you're emotionally compromised, to want to take space in an argument. Is it
Of course.
okay every single time? No. But if it's okay at least some of the time, you don't have the context here to say whether she's in the right or the wrong. So I would probably side. I think it's fair to side with the person that wants to take a little bit of space. That's
Why
totally
do we
fine.
have to say, if we don't know, that we have to side with one side or the other? Can't we debate that? That's what this debate about. I'm not
Because-
saying I know everything about it.
Because Steven is the one that is aggressing here. So you would probably need a higher.
No.
Let me finish a sentence. Steven is the one aggressing here. So similar to how an affirmative defense would work in court, where if you kill somebody and you say it was self-defense, you're already admitting a wrong that like, okay, well, I'm killing somebody, but I had a really good reason for doing it. Steven is the one that's pursuing somebody that said they need space. Generally,
the one
when
with the
somebody
keys.
says they need
Let's let him
space, I'm
finish.
just going to keep talking until I finish. Generally, when somebody says they need space, you ought to respect that. Unless you have a higher threshold of evidence saying, no, when they're trying to say they need space here, it's an abusive strategy. And I would actually go one step further. If they are saying I need space and they're using that as an abusive strategy, to properly resolve that, you would either have a third party or a therapist present to do so. You would never try to resolve it on your own.
She's the aggressor. She's making the decisions. She takes the keys and she says, I'm leaving. That's her aggressive position. He's the
How-
one saying, please don't, please stay.
How is you
She's
saying
the one making the
I'm
decisions.
Yeah, but making a decision isn't always aggressing, right? Me making a decision isn't the same thing as aggressing
She's-
on somebody.
Well,
Me
it depends-
saying I'm taking space isn't aggressing. It's
Yes,
a
it is.
boundary, and it's inherently a de-escalation. Taking space, and
No,
anyone who's gone to
Let's let her finish
marriage
up.
therapy 101 knows that taking space is the most important way to de-escalate conversations. Her getting space is a de-escalation necessarily.
No, it is not. It can be an escalation. Are you too familiar with what's called the silent treatment that people do
Yep.
to others? Is that a
Yeah.
form of aggression? Maybe we're just misusing term. We're using that is an aggressive tactic.
It's not aggressive, it's avoidant, which is generally thought
Okay,
of as
well,
the opposite
whatever.
of aggression.
It's
Now, could it be should it be obnoxious? Sure. Could it be
Okay, fine.
abusive even? Yeah, sure.
Okay, all right,
But
let's use
aggressive
abusive.
or
Let's use
aggression?
abusive.
Sure. We can say she might be being abusive as well, but I need more context to know that. However,
Okay,
I know that it
here's
is
a
almost
piece of context. Here's a piece of context. If I can talk for a little bit, I
Yeah.
know you're offended by that.
We'll let you
But
speak for a bit here. That's fine.
He said to her, Hillary, you always just give up. Now, that wasn't just right then. You can tell there's been a massive history of her giving up, and she is an avoidant personality. If you don't want to call that aggression, I have no problem with that. She has a clear tendency to avoid conflict and to give up. And
So-
that can be a problematic personality type.
I'll fully grant you that being highly avoidant can be abusive, right? This is what neglect is, right? Neglect is like maximal levels of avoidance, but neglect is not aggression. And you guys were saying that Hillary was aggressing first. Saying something is maybe done something that's toxic in a dynamic is not the same thing as aggressing.
Oh,
in the case of
whatever.
well, it really matters in this case because we are
Abusive,
saying,
abusive.
well, we're
Let's let her
saying
finish up,
in
and then
this
we'll kick it
case,
back over to you.
great. Steven is aggressing. Steven Crowder is aggressing first. And she is trying to get space. If we're taking the video with the level of nuance that Steve and I are trying to take the video.
Men tend to be more aggressive. Women tend to be more avoidant. Yeah, okay, but both can be obnoxious in context. Is that correct?
the argument isn't whether who's being obnoxious or not. I don't know why we're
Well, what are we asking? Is Steven Crowder innocent of what?
not even asking if he's innocent. We're just
Of
asking
being
if
a
he's
man.
exhibiting
That's
abusive
what we're
behavior.
actually doing. Is he innocent
Okay.
of being a man? Is he guilty of being a man? And the answer is yes. He's guilty of being a man. So am I. You're trying to get out of it, Steven, but I'm afraid you're going to get caught too. It's not a crime to be a man. It's not a crime to be bigger than a
It's
woman.
not. It's also
It's
not
not a crime to raise your voice.
It's not
a crime to
no,
be.
no one said any of these things were crimes. It's not even a crime to be abusive.
That
Literally,
is
Or
no
leave
one
your
even-
house. or leave your house and never come
Yeah,
back.
it's
to your
also not a
spouse.
crime. Yeah, it's not a crime to leave your spouse. It's not a crime to take the car and fucking drive away. It's
Or to
also
not
not a
walk
crime
the
to
dog.
say
a
when you
woman.
say
It's not a crime to be a
Let's-
woman, but
let's
it's
let
not a
Grace in
crime
here
to be
for
a
a
man.
This is brave, very brave takes here.
yeah,
It's not-
nobody.
it's
I
not
don't
a
think
crime to
anybody's
be a
saying
man or a woman.
otherwise.
Yeah,
True.
you are. You're implying that no matter what the situation, I'm just saying you two both do leave some room for nuance, and you're saying okay, but you generally skew way in the favor of this woman, and I don't see any evidence why you would do that. I admit that we're on both sides conjecturing, but you're like, we shouldn't make judgments about this. But let me go ahead and call him a piece of shit. I just saw your video.
Nobody has said we
Kyla.
shouldn't make. Nobody's saying we shouldn't make any judgments about it. You probably just shouldn't. Like,
Well, why do
shouldn't-
you make them instinctively with no
Okay,
evidence?
I'm just going to keep talking.
Let's
until I
let him
my
finish
point,
up his
okay?
point
Nobody
there.
is saying that we shouldn't make any judgments whatsoever. There are probably some judgments that we can make. It looks like, for instance, they've been to therapy. It looks like, for instance, they've been fighting for a long time. It looks like, for instance, they've got disagreements over the fucking car. We can make some statements about what's going on. There's nothing wrong with that. The only statement that I think me and Erudite, or at the very least I'm opposed to, is absolutely saying in the totality of the relationship, Steven Crowder is the bad guy, Hillary Crowder is the good guy, or vice versa. That's it. In this one situation, Steven Crowder is clearly exhibiting abusive behavior. Hillary Crowder might
No.
be exhibiting abusive behavior.
kick it
But
over
we
to
need
Grace
more
after.
context to say if she is. We don't really need much more context to say if Steven is. Again, it's almost never okay to pursue somebody that's saying they're trying to take space in an argument. That is arguably an abusive behavior, especially if you're doing it by moving your body around to follow them around when they've said they wanted to disengage from an
okay.
argument.
All right. Well, Stephen, you mentioned two other things that proved that he was displaying toxic, abusive behavior. You said he was completely unwilling to work together with her. When he said, Hillary, come on, let's work this out. Hillary, you give up so easily. And she was the one leaving and not engaging while he was trying to continue the conversation. Secondly, you said his tone was derisive. And the examples you gave for his tone being derisive were, you give up easily. You have no respect. The only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said that those are ways of tearing somebody down psychologically. That is clearly not abuse. That is called holding somebody accountable for the promises they made to you, for the standard they agreed to be held to. That's not abuse. That's not misusing the other person.
My door is like, hold on, I'm sorry, 1 second.
Okay. Sure. I'll toss in. I guess that's a little bit more towards Stephen, but Grace, how do you feel about him saying, I don't love you? Do you think that
Okay,
that's in
I'm
any
sorry.
ways a reasonable criticism or something that's going to be productive in a conversation with your wife to figure out your problems?
I got it.
I believe what was happening when he said, I don't love you, is she kept saying, I love you, I love you. And he was saying, well, you've never shown love to me. And I believe he was frustrated. He said, oh, I don't love you. I do not think that's abusive. I don't think it's intended to tear her down. I think he's saying, let's cut
I just
the
asked
bullshit.
if it's him giving valid criticisms. I didn't ask any of these other things. Is it because you said him saying, you need to be disciplined, respectable. These are all examples of him just giving legitimate criticisms to his wife. Is saying, I don't love you, a legitimate criticism to your wife?
Well, I mean, I think you have to view it in the context of what he was saying. Just alone, it seems harsh. But if you see what he said right after it, he said, because you've never shown me love in this relationship, by showing your love instead of just saying you love me. So it's
Right.
valid
So
totally
within
valid.
that context.
Wait, wouldn't that imply then that if he doesn't love her, then he's not showing her love either in that, if that's the context of it, wouldn't that necessarily imply that he's basically saying
No.
neither of us show each other love ever? Why
No.
would he say, I don't love you after complaining about her not showing him love?
Why do you make that leap? He is saying you have never manifested your I love you, I love you, I love you in any actions, or at least to such an extent that he's saying, I ask you to do these minor things and you don't do them. And then you tell me you love me. And he's pointing out that that is abusive. What is wrong with that? He may be,
Well, he's not.
he
he's
may
not-
be
hold on.
wrong. No,
He's not
why are
pointing
you
out-
running this debate, Kyla? Why are you in charge? You and Stephen are not in charge of this debate. Ryan is.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Can I respond, Ryan? Or are you done, Ben?
I think
Okay.
we're
Thank
good.
you, Stan.
Okay. So the question is still, I don't love you doesn't seem productive. In fact, it seems evidence of Stephen's point
both
that
the
he's not trying to find compromise. He's not trying to work on things. I don't think saying things like, I don't love you is
Okay.
helpful in any way to a
Okay,
conversation.
can I push back on that?
Sure thing.
Okay.
Let's go.
If you've got two options that you feel like, because this is kind of end game, let's just say that he's aware this is kind of end game. He's getting the hint that she's pulling something here because he does act very like, what do you mean by that? Okay. So He's saying, now you're saying, is him saying, look, I really want to have this out. I've never seen any love in action from you. And she's taking the keys and leaving. Which of the two of those are engaged? I want an answer to that. Which of those two are going to engage and which one is bolting?
She's leaving the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So is it abusive for him to say, like, well, let's have it out?
He doesn't say, let's have it out. He
Well,
says,
that's what he's
I
saying.
don't
He's
love
saying-
you. You're not showing me love. You need to be a better wife.
Well,
do your
couldn't
wife
it be
duty.
that he doesn't love her anymore? Is that okay for him to say if that's honest, the honest
If
truth?
that's true, then doesn't that undermine every single thing you've been saying, and that he's the one that's essentially leaving? Doesn't that kind of like coincide with him hiring the divorce lawyer first and everything? If he really truly doesn't love her anymore, and even if he does not love her anymore, then why would she stay and have the conversation? Seems like she should just leave.
But he then explains what the problem is. She doesn't do anything. Right?
Do you think that, here's a question, do you think that it's ever constructive in a fight with a wife or significant other or any family member ever? Do you think it's ever constructive to say, I don't love you?
Yes. If someone is using the I love you thing in this manipulative way, does a man have to be perfect? He explained it right after that. Maybe yes. Like, okay,
Nobody
so
says he has to be
he says,
perfect.
she says, he's basically saying to her, I fucking hate this tactic that you do of saying, I love you, I love you. It's bullshit because love manifests itself in action. I believe that's true. Do you guys believe that's true? That saying I love you and not doing anything or not showing that love in whatever ways are normal to show that. It's like coming to your boss and saying, I love this job. And then you don't do anything. Can your boss say, I think you suck as an employee at some point?
So I think you hit I think this is what you said at the beginning. It's never just about the groceries. It's not really about walking the dog, right? He's like fixating on this, but I don't actually know if this is a valuable critique. If Steven Crowder here is actually feeling like the problem is that they don't love on each other, that he isn't shown enough love, I don't think that any of the way that he's approaching this conversation is in any way conductive to this conversation going well. Would you agree, Ben, that in your worldview, that the man's responsibility is that if he's confronting her, it's the man's responsibility to lead the conversation? Would you agree with that?
No, I don't think. I think marriage is a partnership. And I think if you're in a situation, look, this is the thing. If you think it's just about going and getting groceries and how many cars they have, okay, fine. But this is clearly an end game, and that's manifested by the fact that at the end of this conversation, she left him forever and is now attacking him publicly.
Maybe she left because at the end of their last fight, he said, I'm going to fuck you up, and she didn't feel safe in the house.
Yeah, right, because you buy the propaganda. I'm
just going by what's reported in the...
It's not reported. Why? That's her propaganda. There are only two people that could possibly know what happened in that conversation.
Unless they're lying about the court docs or whatever. Supposedly, Steven Crowder has admitted as much that he did say that I'm going to fuck you up.
Court docs? It's an edit of a video from a Nest from a Nest camera.
My understanding is that the writer of that article said that the writer of the article, Yasher or whatever, said that both of them agreed that he had made that statement. So it sounds to me, he said that he admitted that statement. So it sounds to me like this is showing up in a court doc somewhere or some police statements or something.
Now you're guessing. You're guessing.
Okay, hold on. Do you acknowledge either he is reporting this somewhere or he totally made it up?
She is reporting it, obviously.
Okay,
she is reporting it.
Okay, so I'm assuming they're not lying about what's in like a court doc or a police report. Because that's
why would there be a police report if you have an argument with someone?
There could be a police report for all sorts of reasons. But it says in the article...
No, there can't be one.
So it says in the article, now it could be that the article is just lying, but in the article, they explicitly state that Steven Crowder does not deny that he said he would fuck her up.
Yeah, I don't deny that either, but I'm saying you take
if you don't deny that, why are you arguing with me about this?
Out of context, and you can say to someone, I'm going to fuck you up if you do this to me. And you can mean, I am going to go to war with you legally, and I'm going to try to get custody of our kids or something like that.
And somebody might feel uncomfortable after you say that and want to leave the house.
Yeah, and someone also could be twisting that, and that's obviously what's going on here, to make it look like he threatened her violently. Yes, it is. All right, let's talk about that article.
It is.
We know who wrote that article. This guy is an absolute scumbag who takes advantage of women in difficult situations. Some rich woman gave him $200,000. He had to sue her. It doesn't meet the most minimum journalistic standards. This is obviously a hit piece from beginning to end. It's propaganda. No one would quote her family journalistically. There's no such thing as her family. Only mafia people use that kind of language. It's poorly written. It's clearly propaganda for her narrative.
How is her family not an acceptable quote? What do you mean?
What does her family say? What does her family mean?
My guess is it's probably going to be things like mother and father or whatever family member she's confiding in about the divorce.
So you're going to quote something and you don't even say who it's from. It just says her family.
When there's
a family can
allegations
be
in there?
report. Okay. So now you're saying this is great journalism. The guy is a
said it
total
was- hold on.
scumbag.
Nobody
I
said
never
it was
said
great
it was.
journalism.
Nobody here
But you're
said that.
taking what is being said there as true.
Here's the only statement I'm taking as being true. Now you can say that this was totally fabricated. That is within your right. If you want to claim that, that's fine.
No, I
But
think
according
that
to the
liars use a little bit of
according to the article, Steven Crowder himself has agreed that he told his wife, "I will fuck you up." And you keep dancing this awkward line where you're trying to say, "Well, there's no proof that he said it," but then you're also justifying it at the same time, saying, "Oh, well,
No.
he probably said it, but when he said it,
Okay.
he just meant that he's going to like take her to court if she tries to fuck with him or whatever." Right? So I
Okay.
don't know which side do you want to do? You want to do that he didn't say it at all, and we're just not going to believe the article, which is fine, or do you
Okay.
want to take that? Well, he maybe said it, but he's justified if he did. Which
Okay.
argument do you want to take there?
Well, you can take that whole clip and say, okay, do I think that's legit? Is that a legit clip? I do. Someone could say, well, that's all AI, but I think it was her that edited that clip to exactly that way and added the thing at the end. It's obviously someone who's working on her side, because Steven Crowder had said, and I think this was a mistake. He said you can never badmouth your wife in public. So when he's doing the white knight thing and saying, I don't want to bring the family into this. And I think he makes a mistake by doing that. Clearly,
Why do you think it's a white thing to not want to attack?
Code?
So you make this all make sense. You believe that she has like Machiavellian planned this out for the last 2 years, had the fight, saved everything, but
Yep.
she's also so stupid that she would edit a clip that could be used as liable against her of defamation and just lie blatantly on a clip that
so
she
you're-
knows is going to be used in court. So she's
No.
a 9D chess genius Machiavellian superhero who plotted this out, maybe even staged the fight, saved all this, planned these things for 2 years, but also she's too stupid to not realize that if she just blatantly lies in like
No.
videos and edits, that it won't get caught in court.
No, that's not
Just both of
libel.
these
Here,
things
let's
at the
kick
same
it over
time.
to Grace.
No,
for
you're
a
not
little bit.
listening. It's not libel if you edit something in a way that is misleading. And I
I think what
don't
you're
deny
saying-
that he said those words.
do you
I'm
think
just
that
saying
would
it was
get
taken totally
used-
out of context.
How do you think in court they're going to feel, the judge is going to feel, to see, for example, let's take for granted everything you're saying is true and the wife did all of these things. Do you think that
Yeah.
the wife is going to look at this good and be like, oh, so when you say he fucked you up, that didn't happen at all? You just said that publicly to
No, we're
To
not
do
saying
what?
that didn't happen, but
You're not
at
even
the
listening.
At the end, okay, we're not saying that didn't happen, but all she includes is that he got angry and angrier. Then he said this. We're not saying he didn't say that. And then she fled the home. That is intended to portray it as he was getting threatening to her and she fled away from him. When in reality, that's what she says about the situation.
So
it's
you guys
very
now
cherry-picked.
agree that he did say this. You guys believe that he did said, I'm going to fuck
We
you
never
up."
denied it. If you pay attention, you'll
Okay, but if
learn.
somebody's saying they're going to fuck you up, why can't you also say, well, I feel uncomfortable staying in this house?
Okay, well, if it was said in the context of like, if you leave here and do this to me, I'm going to fuck you up. Okay, we have to ask this question. If a man has never raised his hand, and she admits this, never raised his hand at her physically, and she's pregnant with twins 8 months in, and you see his behavior, he is not in any way impeding her, despite your lie that he is. You're telling me that he's physically threatening to assault a woman with twins who is 8 months pregnant? That is
I don't even know
That's
who you're
impossible
arguing against
to
right now. Did
imagine.
anybody here say that? Who said that?
That is the clear implication of taking those words out of context.
Why not just, we're both here. You don't have to ask us about our implications. You just ask us what we mean. I don't know why we're dealing with implications.
Well, that's what it is when you look at something that is edited misleadingly, and
Wait, what
you
is-
two make all sorts of
Let's let Ben
assumptions
finish.
about it based on your
What do you think is
unhealthy hatred of masculinity.
what do you think is misleadingly edited?
Well,
When she-
the words "I'll fuck you up" taken out of context are clearly like, Stephen, I said to you at the end of our interview, I said, I'm going to fuck you up tomorrow in this interview, correct? Okay. Now, you could say, oh, I'm afraid of Ben Thorp. I'm going to sue him. Oh, I'm a victim of him. But you know that it was in the context of debate, right?
Yeah, but I'm not your two twins, like 9-month pregnant wife standing outside a balcony with you. I'd probably feel a lot differently if we were in person. Do you understand that? That a man saying to another man on the
Okay, so
internet.
now you
Hold on,
are
wait,
implying
wait.
that it was a physical threat.
No, I'm just saying that a
Yes,
man
you are.
on the internet saying, I'm going to fuck you up, it comes off a lot different than a man saying that in real life, right? It can make somebody feel a lot less comfortable.
Wait, so are you guys saying or not? Okay, it says Steven got angry and angrier. He said, I'm gonna fuck you up, and she fled the home. You're saying that's abusive that he said that. Are you saying that because it was a physical threat, or are you saying it because it was verbal abuse? Which one are you saying?
This is all I'm saying. I'm going to repeat this for the 20 millionth time. All I'm saying is that if you're in a household with somebody, especially your husband, and he says, I'm going to fuck you up for any reason, even if there's no physical threat, you might feel uncomfortable such that you're like, I need to leave this house. I don't feel comfortable here. That it would be totally within your right to say that.
Yeah, this was at the end. This was the end of the end game. And wait, he's saying like, don't do this. I'm going to fuck you up. He was threatening her, whatever.
Okay,
with
do you think,
financial or
let's just
whatever.
ask, let's try easy yes or no's again. Do you think it's reasonable for somebody to say, I don't want to be in the same house as a husband that's saying they're going to fuck me up?
I admit that it was over. It was over.
Okay, then what's
I
so bad
admit
about
it.
her leaving the house? If
It-
you're
it's
telling
the
me it was
whole-
over, why can't
Okay.
you just leave?
Is it
Okay.
reasonable? I just actually want to hear the answer to that. Is it reasonable
Yeah.
for somebody to feel uncomfortable if Nick says I'm going to fuck you up in any way? Do you think it's reasonable for me to be like, that made me a little uncomfortable? Is that reasonable?
Yeah, but you also have to
would
take-
it be
Hold
uncomfortable?
on, just a yes or no. Is it reasonable?
No, I'm not playing your games. Fuck you. I don't play this manipulation games.
Remember that question, just ask it after he rambles, because he's going to say a bunch of random shit now.
You're not in charge of this debate.
Okay, could we maybe try to be a little meta here and maybe just try to assume that when we're asking you questions, we're actually just trying to get to the bottom of what you believe, and we're not doing like some
Yeah,
sneaky
but you don't
maniacal
have a right
stuff?
to say, give me a yes or no question. I'm not on a witness
The
stand.
problem is you're not answering at all. You're just like rambling off on some like random shit. Do you have a right to leave your house because you feel uncomfortable because your partner is going to fuck you up? Is that a right?
You
of
have a
consent?
legal right. Yes, you
No
do.
one is asking legally, morally.
You have
But
a
but then
moral
you're
right in every situation. Now you're doing the exact same thing we did before. We established that sometimes yes and sometimes no.
Okay, do you think in this circumstance where a woman is fucking 9 months pregnant with twins, that when her husband says, I'm going to fuck you up, that she probably has a right to say, okay, I feel uncomfortable here. I'm going to leave my house.
Especially after
I
a
think
major
she
fight.
planned this out. Look at the timing of it. Look at the timing of it.
You didn't answer
She
my
had
question.
been for a
You
couple
didn't
of
answer my
years.
question. Just let the record show.
So going back to, do you think that it's reasonable after a big fight with her husband that a pregnant woman feels uncomfortable and wants to leave her house after her husband says, I'm going to fuck you up?
I think it was
Grace?
over at that point. I
It
agree.
That
depends.
wasn't that
So
question.
when she
Whether or
left,
not
I don't
it's
think
over
there was
is
any
not the
surprise.
question.
That's
No one's
not the
asking if it was
question.
over.
Let's get the
Is it
question.
reasonable?
Does she have the moral right? Yes, of course. She
She
has the
wanted
moral-
him to say that.
She has
so
the
then
right
she
to
could-
leave.
She could do this edit.
Okay,
In
if
my
she has the
opinion.
That
right,
doesn't
my
prove
opinion.
that he's abusive, though. She has the right if she feels like it. Yes, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean she's correct, and that doesn't mean that he's abusive.
True. Okay, that's great. Okay, we're making progress. So if she has a right, an ethical right to leave the house if she wants to, why would somebody else have a right to try to stop her or to tell her she can't?
He doesn't say you can't.
Okay,
leave.
so
He asks
all
her
right,
to-
so let's go. Wait, let's go back to this. What do you do when you get married? You two are married. I thought I was married. What is it that you're saying to that person? Whatever,
If
just
my
whatever,
wife
as long
says,
as this is
hey, I'm
convenient.
uncomfortable, I want to take some space, then I go, okay, when you're back, we can argue.
Does a marriage have any obligations that come with it?
Of course it does. But
Okay.
none of those obligations are, if you're extremely uncomfortable, you need to sit right here, right now, and finish this fight with me.
Okay, so what if someone has been saying since they were married that they've been disengaging and avoiding and not ever doing their part as they see it, which is something, and then they bolt? Isn't that irresponsible?
Yep. Then you talk to
Sure.
a therapist.
Well, but couldn't it be wrong to blame the spouse if someone has been doing that?
Nope.
It's
Your
not
partner
wrong
can
to
be-
blame the spouse.
Your part, no. If you want to say that Hillary Crowder has been acting improperly and is failing to uphold her obligations as a wife, that could all be totally true. That still doesn't give Steven Crowder the right to tell her that she's not allowed to withdraw from a situation where she feels uncomfortable.
Well, he's not saying you can't. He's saying you shouldn't.
But
You
he's saying,
shouldn't
don't
give
take the
up
car.
so easily.
Your friends aren't allowed to come and pick you up. Go take an Uber. Don't leave. What do you mean you're leaving? You can't take the car. Just sit here and work with the dogs, do the dog stuff. If you actually loved me, you wouldn't leave. You would just do the dog stuff. So you're right. He's not physically preventing her. He's never explicitly said, you're not allowed to leave this house. You're my female slave. You're right. He never said those things, but he said a whole bunch of other stuff to try to pressure her to not leave.
Right. He's trying to say you can't keep running away from your problems. Is that abuse? If he's justified, could there be a situation in which someone is justified? If I have 6 kids, if my kids want to avoid their problems and not face them, then I will tell them, no, you don't have a right to just run away and keep saying, I need time, I need to think about things. Right?
That's true, but that's because you're their parent. He's not her parent. That's her husband.
Well,
They're partners.
anybody in any situation, if an employee says, I
No.
need some time because this pressure I ran a restaurant. If an employee says, I need some time out in the middle of a busy rush, I need to get my head together. You need to say, fuck you, get your ass in here or you're fired. You have a fundamental breakdown
No.
in a
Yeah,
relationship.
You say, yeah, if you want to leave, go for it, but you're not coming back. That's what you would say. You would never
Fine.
chase an employee and say, sure, but he didn't let her leave. He acted like he could chase the employee down and say, go back on the line. You're cooking until the shift's over. You can't do that.
Stephen, she had the keys in her hand. She walked out the door, never to return. How in God's name did he prevent her from leaving? He was just appealing to her one last time. And she had long since, I believe, made the decision she was going to set him up in that little backyard, make him look like an asshole, and then bolt just in time to get alimony of a very, very wealthy man. I think she had a problem. That's
if I
my
go up
guess.
to somebody, if I were to go up to my wife and say, I'm going to beat the shit out of you, but I don't actually hit her, is that okay?
If you say, but he didn't say that.
I didn't say he said that. I'm asking you, if I go to my wife and I say, I'm going to beat the shit out of you, but I don't actually hit her, is that okay?
I think there are, with women, no. But if you say that to a man, I think, and you aren't going to, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I can even work within that framework. Go for it, Erudite.
Well, I'm just going to inject here just before we continue
Well, people get
on.
frustrated.
Yeah, that's a framework I can work with. Okay.
Just before we do
It's
continue
really
on,
my worldview.
I will just let you know we have been going now for the time that we had said at the beginning. So it's up to y'all if you want to keep having the discussion, or we can move into Q&A. It's totally up to you guys if you want to just keep the open discussion flowing.
I would just love to suggest one question that we bat around, and that is, but you guys can choose to not. I know we're the little people here, and that is, can a woman fail, or is it always someone else's fault? And can you give me an example of that?
Hold on. Is this a serious question?
Yeah. Give me an example of where a woman can fail, and we don't blame it on mental illness or anything like that. Where we just say, you have failed, and we can raise our voice. Give me an example.
Can I Ben
Okay.
style you and ask you a different question unrelated to that I think is more interesting?
Sure.
Okay. If we had to describe Steven Crowder's interactions with his wife as one of two things, persuasion, negotiation, or intimidation, which word would you choose?
Negotiation
Persuasion.
for sure.
Persuasion.
Persuasion.
Yes.
Negotiation?
Hillary,
I don't
the
love
only way
you.
out of this,
Absolutely.
the
I
only way
don't
out
love
of this
you.
is discipline and respect. Hillary, you give up so easily. Hillary, come on.
Does
That's
the
negotiation.
so wait, negotiation, hold up. Pro tip, negotiation doesn't mean the only way this can work is if you do what I want. That is not negotiation ever. I will fuck you up. I don't love you is not negotiation
Yeah.
at all. There is no
Yes,
wiggle
it
room
is.
there.
It's
you
a
want me
way
to
of
give you an
making a
example
point
of that?
firmly.
You want me to give you an example?
I
of
would
a
love to hear an
negotiation?
example of that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, a business partnership starts going downhill,
Uh-huh.
and you hold your partner accountable, and you say, you better get it together and start working for this business, or I'm going to fuck you up financially.
No, that's not acceptable.
And if it gets to that point where it's deteriorated, it's a good example. Why not?
Because you'd never say that to a business partner. That's insane.
Yes, you absolutely would. You would say, look, you might think you could just wander away from this obligation, but you cannot. Because I've been in business partnerships. They're very dicey because everyone has both partners. It's like a marriage. Both partners have full access. If one of the partners starts accessing, let's say, the funds,
If
and is
that's
doing that illegally and you're letting it go, you're going to tell them, look, I know what you're doing. I'm documenting. I'm going to fuck you up in court.
if that's negotiation, what does intimidation look like?
True.
Intimidation?
It's a way to get somebody to stop doing something because she starts accusing him of abuse, right?
I
She's
just
saying
want an
you're
example.
abusive.
I
All
can
right.
give you an example of intimidation. It's
In
like
the
what you did
context
in
of
the
that
debate the
business
other
thing.
day when you accused me of sexual harassment. That's intimidation. That's what you did
Mm.
on that panel because I asked you what your
Ooh.
preference was sexually.
Whether
That's
I like the hard
intimidation.
dick inside me. Yes, yeah.
No, I didn't say that to you. I asked you what you preferred, an erection or a soft, right? Okay. And you
Inside
said
me,
that was
yep.
sexual harassment. That's intimidation, Kyla.
Let's
You
try to
shouldn't
get
do
back
it.
to the topic, just to keep on point, because that's not entirely what we're here for. All
Well,
right?
she asked for an example.
That's fine. So if you guys want to keep talking about the subject, that's okay, but we can move into our Q&A if everybody's ready.
Do you think that there are ever situations? I already know the answer to this, so I guess I'm just asking for the audience's sake.
You go
Do
ahead.
you think there are ever situations where a husband and a wife are arguing, the husband says some shit like, you need discipline, you need respect, I don't love you, this isn't working out, I'm gonna fuck you up if you walk away from this? Do you think there's ever a situation where like 6 months later they're like, you know what, I'm really glad my husband said that, I needed to hear that, it got me in shape, like, and our relationship is way better now for that?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I thought.
Okay.
Sometimes women, both sides, they need to be like held responsible if they're failing, and it's especially the man's job as the leader, of course.
Sure. So would you guys agree that there are ways that you could give your partner criticisms that are probably going to be more productive or more unproductive?
Definitely.
Right. So say I have an issue with my partner. I could say it like, hey, just so you know, like, I understand that like there's probably reasons why this is going on, but when you do this thing, it really hurts me and it bothers me and it makes me feel not loved. Or I could say, I don't love you. And if you want to do these things, if you want to have love, if you want to show me love, you need to do these two things right now. Which do you think is going to be more productive for the goal that I'm trying to achieve, which is feeling loved by my partner?
Depends on the context.
What about
Let's
a
say
coach?
you have
What about
children
a
and
coach?
your partner is abusing your children. Are you going to have a nice little conversation, or are you going to say you need to stop that right now?
Well, even if I'm saying you need to stop that right now, I don't think I would ever couch it in language like I will fuck you up, which is a threat, or I don't love you. Basically ever. I think you can have really firm boundaries and really hard conversations with people that don't deter into basically like insulting, strong arming people, threatening them, chasing them around the house. Like I think there are a million other ways to have a productive negotiation with your spouse. And I think it's insane to try to argue that like these things that Crowder was doing was clearly his attempt at a healthy, positive negotiation.
So there's no such thing as a wake up call. There's just abuse. No one can say, here's a wake up call for you.
You keep using these insane dichotomies. Like imagine me walking into like a person's bedroom, then punching them in the face. And they're like, bro, why are you punching me in the face? And I'm like, oh, so you think I can't give you an alarm clock? Like that's what you're doing every time we say something. When we say like, you can't tell your spouse, I'm going to fuck you up if you fail your wifely duties. And you're like, oh, so you can never tell your spouse that they need to do a better job? Nobody's saying that. I don't know why the only thing that exists in your mind is the most radical engagement possible with a person that, by the way, would be completely ineffective at bringing about any change of behavior. All it's going to do is foster resentment and make the person fucking hate you 10 out of 10 times.
You keep assuming that I will fuck you up is a physical threat of violence.
No, it doesn't have to be a physical threat. There's
you keep using that as an example.
There is never, I'll take a strongest to this. There is never a productive conversation between husband and wife where one party says, I will fuck you up in a serious manner that gets resolved in a positive way. That doesn't happen.
If you take me to divorce court, I'm going to fuck you up in divorce court. Yes. Yes.
Oh, and since he told me that, now I realize that like we need to work hard on our problems and have a healthy resolution. That's not happening, bro.
Yeah,
At
you're
that
not
point, the relationship is over.
Screw me over here. Yeah, that's right. You can say that. Do you agree, Kyla? Do you agree with that?
No.
You couldn't.
No.
And because that is the context here.
There
she
is
taking
no
him down, and
where
she's
I would
timed
encourage
it.
partners to say, I don't love you. It's basically my way or the highway. It's about respect and discipline, and I will fuck you up. There is almost no context I can think of where I go, yeah, that'll be a productive, healthy, and positive context.
I don't know why you said there's almost no context. There's no context.
There's no context.
There's no context.
I just gave you a context.
Yeah, and I reject that. I said no. That would not be a good example of a healthy engagement.
Well, can we answer my question then? What is it that a woman can do that we can say, let's say in the context of a marriage, that we can say she is to blame, and not say we need to see a therapist, but that there's a moral failing on her part? Can you give me an example?
I'm not engaged with the question. It's a ridiculous question.
Oh, you're not going to engage?
No,
because you
that's a
can't
ridiculous
answer it.
question.
Because
No,
in your
it's
mind,
because
women cannot sin.
Okay, if that's what you think, that's fine. But nothing I say is going to convince you otherwise.
Like, honestly, if you want to talk about like masculinity here, I would argue that you would probably agree that Steven Crowder whinging on the couch because his wife wants to leave is not the most masculine show at all. Like, according to to your worldview, like it's insane.
I think
it's
he
not very
acted
stoic.
perfectly within that. He acted perfectly within the bounds of normal masculinity. Was he absolutely perfect? Why do men have to be absolutely perfect?
You just did the dichotomy thing again. Why do they have to be perfect?
Oh, my screen share? Oh, okay.
So Neither of you could come up with an example. So we win this debate.
Based.
There you go. You did it.
Well, the other screen
Thank you for
shares were
conceding.
his reaction to her dropping that clip. I don't know if you want to play that, but I mean, it's not super relevant to this part of the conversation.
It's up to everybody.
Grace, we just won the debate. Let's move to Q&A. Let's rip them apart on that too.
All right, let's go.
There's nothing like winning a debate than having to declare over and over that you've won the debate. Yes, true.
Well, I didn't. I knew that Grace had a couple other things there that she might have wanted to share. So if we've already kind of hammered that out, then I think we will move into our Q&A. Thank you everybody for being here. I just want to remind everybody in the live chat that the best way to get these debates out there and get these conversations attention that they deserve is by sharing this out. So if you got a contentious space that you exist in, you like to debate in, share this out. Share it with your friends. Let them know that we've got all the contentious topics over here on Modern Day Debate, and we really have good, productive conversations generally about it. So let's go into Q&A, everybody, and thanks again to all of our speakers for being here. Simon Allen for €2. Unable to watch, just love to MDB. Big up Ryan. And then he gives me a little pound it there. Okay, well, yeah, there you go. Boop, there you go. That's to him. Psychor, $10. Hiring a servant with your millions when you're fresh out of surgery and wife is minutes from birthing twins. Cringe. Berating your massively pregnant wife for not doing all your chores. Based.
Yeah, this is this lie that if a woman is married to a rich man, that if she doesn't feel like doing something, that he should just hire somebody to take care of it for her. Women who are married to wealthy men are not just window dressing. They have obligations just like the man, and they should be held accountable instead of saying, well, if she doesn't want to do it, you have enough money to pay for her to do it. That doesn't make any sense.
Isn't Hillary Clinton like an actress or a model or something? Like, I imagine she probably wasn't working at that time, but doesn't she have like tons of things that she does?
You
Probably
said Hillary
like
Clinton. You meant Hillary
sorry,
Crowder?
Yeah, I meant Hillary Crowder. Her too, though. I'm pretty sure Hillary Clinton's a really good model.
She's
Super
hot.
hot. Yep.
They should both be locked up.
All right, let's continue on. Flamio, $5. Thanks for coming back. If Steven Crowder is abusing his spouse by debating her, then Modern Day Debate is an underground fight club. We're not supposed to talk about it. Anybody want to comment on that?
Different behaviors are appropriate in different settings. Having an argument with somebody when they're clearly emotionally distressed and they're trying to take space and then telling them that they're not allowed to take space is pretty abusive.
Claiming that it's okay to have more emotional range in an online debate than it is to have an argument with your wife is ridiculous. You should be able to share more of your emotions with your wife. Get angrier, get more invested, be more honest with her.
No one is saying that you can't be invested. Nobody is saying that you can't be angry, and nobody's saying that you can't be honest. It's like
yes, you are.
Straw man after straw man after straw man. There are different ways that I would engage with my online community that I would not engage with my wife, that I not engage with my son, that I wouldn't engage with my parents. Of course, that's obviously true. It's not a matter of showing a different range. It's just a matter of
so give one example. Give one example when you can be.
Give an example.
Raise your voice towards a spouse.
I don't think it's ever good to raise your voice towards a spouse.
Okay.
Oh, well, that's crazy.
We win again.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
That's crazy. That's actually
another
crazy.
win for the Thorps.
True. Raising voices towards over. Spouses equals base.
Ever raising your voice? Ever?
No, you shouldn't. Raising your voice usually means you're emotionally dysregulated. It's probably not a good thing to do.
So if your wife's about to walk off a cliff and she's not aware of it, you can't say, hey, stop.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we talking? Okay. Hold on. I'm going to take a giant debate, L. There are times when you raise your voice. If your wife's about to walk into traffic, you're trying to warn her not to, or if she's walking in the park and a snake is chasing her, then you can say,
now
"Why?"
You're going back on what you just said.
I just say I am going back. You're right. That's a big debate W for you.
So take the L, right? So another L for
you. I did. Huge L. My bad. Yeah, you got me there. Okay.
Do you think there's ever like a time where it's going to be really emotionally healthy and like helpful to your relationship to like insult your wife or tell her that you don't love her?
Yes.
Is that like part of the range of emotions that you need to show your spouse?
Yes, to show her that you're...
in certain circumstances, yes, I would say.
If she's made you angry because
and everyone.
If she's made you angry because she's doing wrong, you should communicate that to her. That's healthy communication.
Do you think that you can help her communicate that you've been...
Stop doing this. No one is saying that you can't communicate anger. Why do you keep doing this weird dichotomy?
Yeah, you just said it.
Steven,
she asked
Steven,
me, hold on, Erudite asked me if it was okay to scream at your wife.
Steven, I
Erudite
love
asked
you.
me if it was okay if you scream at your wife.
Let's let Steven go.
Erudite asked me if it's okay to scream at your wife. And then you counter this, you should be able to show anger and you should be able to show emotion, whatever. No one is saying that you can't do that.
Yes,
Stop
you
with
are.
the weird, no one is, stop with the weird
Well,
dichotomy
what
there.
happens? What happens
I
when
asked
you
you for
express
one
anger?
example.
Let's
You
let
What
Grace
happens
speak.
when you express anger? What happens?
You don't have to
Okay,
scream or shout
what
or
happened-
demean.
The idea that
You
guys
raise
have,
your voice and you get
No.
emotionally invested. That is
Grace.
part of getting
No,
angry.
no, there are two ways to process emotions always. It's called externalizing and,
And men-
internalizing.
Men show
Hold
it
on,
Let's-
more
I
aggressive.
almost
let's
got
let
you. I almost got
Erudite-
you.
Please, let's let
The
Erudite
fact
speak.
that you think that you cannot express an emotion unless you're being abusive to your partner is insane. You can show your anger in a ton of ways. For example, when Nick and I get angry at each other, we almost always take a time out because it's not very healthy to show your partner your anger because you typically say things that you would otherwise regret. What we do
That is
instead
completely-
okay, go off, Queen, about our relationship. But what we do instead
Not about
is
the
take some
relationship, just
space,
about what you said.
regulate ourselves down. The idea that you must at all times maximally show precisely how you feel and never filter it at all is just immaturity. You're just being emotionally
Okay, so this
immature.
shows your bias. You think that anger is a bad emotion to have.
Nobody
say that?
said that
Actually
anger is a
expressing
bad
it-
emotion to have. There are ways you can express anger that doesn't involve you
expressing anger-
shouting.
No,
Okay,
you
here's a good
guys are
example.
changing
I'm
your
frustrated
position.
with both of you right now, and I'm raising my voice a little bit because I'm frustrated. Is that super bad? Do I think that that's bad? What do you think?
You're arguing that it is.
You said
Another
that you
L
would
for
never
your
raise
side.
your
Of
voice
course
You're
I'm not.
against your
arguing that it
partner.
is.
You
No.
would never raise your voice
Let's
to your
let Grace
partner.
speak, please.
But you said that. So according to your own definition, you're abusing us, right?
No, we don't have that relationship. We're people on the internet. We can shout and scream at each other. It's a different context.
Oh, but with the person you trust the most, you can't share your emotions? How does that make any sense?
If I tell
you can't be honest
if I
about
tell
how you feel?
Do you
it's not
must
about being
you
honest.
show-
If
Let's
I
let
tell
Steven-
you, if
let's
I
let
if I
Steven
tell
talk,
you,
please.
I think you're being fucking retarded, or I think you're a fucking retard. That hits a lot different than if I tell my son I think he's a fucking retard. Do you acknowledge the difference there? Yes or no?
Yeah, I acknowledge that difference.
Okay,
but
thank
also,
you. So then there's a difference between me getting upset at you or Erudite getting upset in this conversation with you guys when the context is like a debate that we're having versus getting upset about resolving a personal issue in a relationship with a significant other.
Okay.
Those are two different contexts.
Look. You
I'm also not
changed-
yelling at you guys. I'm
you
raising my
changed-
voice.
I'm yelling.
You changed it. You said there's no context in which, and I asked you, I gave you the big win. You just gave me one context in which a man can raise his voice at his spouse. You said, I choose not to engage. And you took your first L and you're keeping them coming at you. Now, if you say, of course, that with your children and with your spouse, you should start from a position of kindness and gentleness. Of course. But you are the ones who are saying that in no context can what Steven Crowder did be understandable. And you are wrong by your own admission.
No one
said
is
that.
saying
one has said that.
understandable. We're saying, and there are times when people do
Yes.
raise their voice. Nobody's perfect, but what we're saying is you can express anger and all sorts of and disappointment and
No,
all
you're
sorts
not
of
gonna get
other
out of
things
this one.
without being angry.
No.
Or I'm sorry, without screaming.
you can
at
Well,
express
well,
anger
you
without
said
being
it's
angry.
abusive.
You
Let's
can
let Ben
express
speak.
anger without being
Everybody,
angry.
hold on.
Hold
Hold
on.
on.
What you just said.
It's there. Oh, he's lighting a cigarette. Finish
I
up
can
your
wrap
thoughts
up my
there.
thoughts and smoke.
It's all good. All right, so we'll let you speak and finish up your thoughts, and we'll pass back
Thank
to
you.
Steven.
You guys are changing your position and you're going to take yet another L. You said it's definitely abusive what Steven said. And all we're saying is I could see a context in which it makes perfect sense. And you said, nope. And Kyla actually tried to give you guys a little out. And then you took it from her by saying, no, honey, no context whatsoever. And she agreed with you. And that's where you took your first L. And you can't get out of it now. You said that and you've lost the debate. So let's move on.
Okay, here are the two statements that Kyle and I are making that you guys can't seem to wrap your head around. Okay. Number one is you can express anger or disappointment or contempt without screaming or shouting at somebody. Okay. For instance, I can say, you're a fucking failure of a wife. Or I can say, hey, this household is very stressful for me and I'm very upset because you can't seem to do your responsibilities and it is hurting me, right?
Right.
You're expressing the same thing there in two totally different ways. Okay. Both partners are angry and feel like their wife is failing their obligation. In one, you can express it in a very derisive, condescending, evil way. And a second way, you can express it in, hey, I'm feeling hurt about this. You're not living up to your obligations. Okay. So that's the first thing we're making. The second one is screaming, shouting, or being derisive or aggressive or angry towards your partner, or expressing that in a screaming, shouting, snarky sort of way is almost never conducive to solving problems. Those are the two statements we're making, okay? Not that you can never be angry, not that you should never, ever be mean, not that being mean makes you instantly abusive, not that you can never hold them responsible for anything. We've never made any of those statements. We don't even agree with those things.
Okay, so you're going back on what you said, and you said there's no context in which Steven Crowder's behavior can be perfectly understandable, even though we've given you one.
Understandable. Sorry, you can take it if you want. No one
And morally fine.
I
And
can
morally
understand why
fine.
some people kill people. Understandable is not the same thing as morally acceptable.
Perfectly morally acceptable.
So we need to be clear about what we said. There are certain things where we said there is no context that we think these statements can ever be helpful, which was 3 specific statements. We started this. The reason why so many people on the internet are mad at Steven and I is because we said from the very beginning, you can't say much about a 3-minute video and how it confers to the rest of the relationship. The idea that we've just denied that context can exist outside of this, that might make certain statements that look bad become more benign. Of course, we've acknowledged that. That's been our position the whole time. There are 3 specific statements that are self-evidently toxic, which is, I don't love you, I'm going to fuck you up. And now I can't remember the other fucking one. In these cases, no, there is no context where you need to say to your wife, I'm going to fuck you up, or I don't love you. There just isn't.
Even though I've given you them, even though I've given you context.
You've never given us a statement where it's okay to say, I don't love you.
If you don't feel love towards somebody, that's okay to say.
Okay, then in that case, the relationship is over.
We're not debating whether the relationship's over. We're debating whether he's abusive. Whether he's abusive. You're saying that's abusive. I'm saying it's not abusive if he doesn't love her anymore. How is that abusive? It's honest.
Okay, it's either abusive or it's relationship terminating then. If you'd like to add the second one. I thought we were coming at this from the context of trying to fix problems in a relationship. So if you want to say that you can say, so if you want to say,
let's Steven speak.
Because you guys were claiming that it was a negotiation. You said that he was trying to solve a problem, and now you're saying, well, it's okay to say you don't love somebody if you're ready to end the relationship. Okay, then honestly, is the relationship is done then. In that case, it's good that Hillary left. You guys should be championing that she left because Steven Crowder said he don't love her anymore. That's fine, which is perfectly rational. If your husband doesn't love you anymore, why the fuck would you stay? So okay, cool, based.
Yeah, I think it was an end game thing. Now, I actually want to say, like, this is the larger context is emotions. What you're saying is that the emotions that the typical way that men, big, strong, masculine men express emotions is wrong and immoral, right? And you're saying they have to have this therapist type of talk. That's not true. That's why men who are masculine, for example, Steve Jobs was notorious. I'm no big Steve Jobs fan. He was notorious for demanding a lot of his highly paid employees, and he didn't beat around the bush. And when Hillary Crowder married Steven Crowder, okay, she married a man like this, and that is attractive, okay? But if you say, well, no, you've got to clip yourself and act like Steven would act with a female always, that's not fair.
Great. So since you're not talking to Steve and I, because literally nobody said any of those things, I guess there's like an extra ghost in the room. Do you want to talk to my plant? Maybe the plant
did say those
things.
That. He used a specific example of where you can't have a certain tone. And then he said, what you need to do is this therapy talk and go, I'm having trouble with you. Right.
Steve Jobs was notoriously seen as an asshole by literally everybody.
Everyone.
Steve Jobs was the CEO of a company bossing around his employees. Steven Crowder, clearly his strategy didn't work because now he is divorced and Steven Crowder's wife is not his employee. So your example literally fortifies what I'm saying and fails at what you're saying at every single stage of the way, unless you think a husband ought to treat his wife like a CEO who was notoriously known as being an asshole and died of fucking ass cancer or whatever because he ate too many vegetables, okay, that everybody fucking hated, that's like the gold standard for how to treat a partner. But none of that makes sense.
Would you say that relationships have commonalities? The relationship between a parent and a kid, between spouses, between co-workers, there are commonalities.
There are some commonalities, but there's also crucial differences.
Okay. And your difference is that you can never raise your voice or express anger in a kind of honest way. You have to clip it and always be this kind of therapist about it when a man is dealing with a woman. But I haven't heard you say that backwards. I haven't heard you say
this like Steven Crowder was just being really honest and vulnerable with his wife about his feelings is just dishonest. That is not what happened. Hillary said, "But Steven, I love you," and then he said, "I don't love you, and I've never experienced love from you." He was whinging out and getting upset.
No, he wasn't doing that. You're exaggerating.
You can be pro masculinity without being pro toxicity, right? You can be pro masculinity.
You're anti-masculine.
You just not actually.
Yes, you did. You just made fun of him and exaggerated and tried to make him look like he was crying. He wasn't.
What's more emasculating than getting divorced from your wife and losing access to both your children?
He was fighting to keep the access.
Do that to him.
He wasn't fighting to keep the access. He fucking drove his wife out of the household.
Right. So what you would do is go, yeah, honey, okay, all your failures, just keep them coming, and I'll hire someone to do what you have to do. You can never confront a woman.
So just to be clear, when I'm making fun of...
I just want to affirm I did say that you can never confront a woman ever. I just want to make sure we all understand that's what I'm saying. Go ahead, Kyla.
I asked you to give me an example. You couldn't.
So just to be clear, I'm making fun of Steven Crowder for being toxically feminine in this case, right? He's being like manipulative and trying to coerce her through his words of saying, "I don't love you, and I've never experienced love from you." That's what I'm making fun of him. He's being toxic, and in this case, I think he's being feminine as well. And that's why I'm making fun of him, because it's cringe. It's toxic and inappropriate behavior.
He is being vulnerable. Yes.
It's toxic to say that
She's beating the shit out of him. She's beating the shit out of him, and he's taking it.
That's toxic to say?
No. Did I say it's always toxic to say these things? I said, "I don't love you, and I've never experienced love to you," in response to her saying, "But I love you. I want to work on this," is toxically feminine.
She didn't say, "I want to work on this." You're adding things. She said, "I love you. I'm committed to you." And then a couple months later, she divorced him. She's lying.
I'm committed to you. What does I'm committed to you mean? But I want to work on things.
But then she went and divorced him. She was
lying.
He
hired a divorce lawyer. He hired a divorce lawyer.
In the context of this, if she said, "Steven, I love you and I'm committed to you," and his response is to lash out and go, "I don't love you, and I've never experienced love from you."
But see, you keep feminizing him. You keep feminizing him. You keep turning it into him crying like a baby. He wasn't.
Well, the other option is he's being toxically masculine, I suppose, but we can watch it again. I'm pretty sure when he says it,
no,
it's
there's
not
another
like this,
option.
Really impressive
there's
thing
another option, Kyla, and that
look,
is
wife,
that he was.
I'm out of this relationship. We've come to the place. I don't love you anymore, wife. That's not happening.
So that's the only two ways you can interpret masculine behavior. Because you hate men.
Bro.
There you go.
Okay, hang on. Let me find it.
All right, let's share the reaction
See if it
video.
looks like what Kyla portrayed it as. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It looks like a man at his wit's end. And I sympathize with Steven Crowder. And if he's watching, I do want to have a conversation about your situation because I think it can help. And Grace can help too. Grace wants to go to that patio and give the dog his medicine and take the dog for a walk and be grateful and anything else he needs after what he's been put through.
I would be happy. He needs some feminine support after being attacked by this bitch. Okay, let me find it. Oh, here we go. I don't love you. Okay. Share screen.
Make sure you share the audio if there's audio to be had.
You need to just stop engaging for a little bit, okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you, and the fact is, when I go,
okay, that's the part right there. I can keep going, but
okay. So how does that sound like what Kyla said?
Because she's literally saying, "Steven, I love you. I'm committed to you." And then that sounds to me like somebody that's trying to or wants to work on it. And then he's saying, "I don't love you. I've never received love from you." That sounds like somebody that's given up. So in the context of this recording, sounds like he's the one that's given up and he's ready to throw in the towel. And I'm pretty sure he's the one that hires the divorce lawyer like a month after this video.
I can explain that, but I think we're at an impasse. If you think his reaction there is, Steven, we're at an impasse. If you think his reaction there,
I don't love
not
you.
Reasonable.
Steven, I love you. I'm committed to you. Well, I don't love you. And the big problem here is that I've never received love from you.
So you in your imagination think that is what happened. And so we're experiencing two different realities, Kyla.
He
and
did
you
not
are
say
wrong.
that.
I'm on planet Earth and you're somewhere out in outer space in anti-masculine land. And you should get the hell out of the manosphere and stop telling men what to do, because they should know that you are a hater of men. Don't give
There you
them
go.
any
As
more
long
advice.
as you say it
Get the fuck away from
confidently
men.
enough, anything can be true. Let me see it here.
Yeah,
Keep
cope all
telling
you
it.
want.
Did
Cope
you
all
win
you
too?
want.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing here. We're exposing you for what you are, which is a man hater.
How are you? It's never mind.
You're actually
Go
both
ahead, Steven.
emotion haters too.
If you had something
What?
to say there, Stephen, if you wanted to elaborate.
No,
there.
it's I'm fine.
Neither of you should be giving advice to anyone about anything.
Okay, I
Least
will
of
say
all
it. Never mind.
relationships.
You are a man who is divorced from his wife, defending another man who
No,
just got
I'm
divorced from
not.
his wife for toxic behavior, talking to two people that are happily married about how to maintain a happy marriage. How are you telling us that we're not qualified to give advice?
You want to go into your marriage?
It is the most insane
You
fucking
want to
thing in the
go into
world.
your marriage? You told me yesterday that you would kill your child and that the only thing keeping you from it would be the inconvenience of driving your car to the abortion clinic. You're a disgusting person.
Bro,
Say that.
I would have an abortion. Yes.
Let's try not to reference prior discussions.
Well, he referenced himself as an
I did
example.
reference myself.
That
True.
is
And we
fair.
could talk about Kyla too if we want, but I won't go there.
Let's
You can't talk about my relationship because there's nothing. Like if,
Right,
if you want like a
exactly,
picture perfect of just like
exactly.
a really
Thanks for-
healthy, happy
thanks for
relationship,
letting us.
you can find Nick and I, okay? We're so happy and healthy that my main insult on like many spaces that I'm boring, okay?
well,
But go on,
let's
Kim.
continue on, and it's always
Maybe. I'm not here to say like
Okay.
I'm
no,
not
you're
here to judge your relationship, but there are signs here.
well,
Everyone's seen them.
Bro.
this was an incredible launch off of then modern day debate is an underground fight club, which I know Oflamio knows we're not supposed to talk about that. So positive $10. Destiny is based and Giga Chad because he can give the best argument for either side with no attachment. He even delivers better people who are super attached to their side. I think he means delivers arguments. Delivers better people who are super attached to their side. This is based, not flip-flop.
Wow.
There's a lot of missing punctuation there.
I
but
can't tell if they're a fan of Destiny or a hater of Destiny.
there's a bit of missing punctuation.
I would agree that your analyses of this are the most nuanced. So like we're not really on the opposite sides here, but
I don't think they're much of a fan because it starts out with the based in Giga Chad. So I don't know if that's a compliment in these spaces. So we'll just move on from there. I think we've got better questions. Sorry, Positive. Thank you for your donation, your super chat. So much mass for $4.99. If I follow Grace for 5 minutes on the street while yelling at her, is there physical intimidation? That's for you, Grace.
I would say yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Wait, how is that
Yes.
physical intimidation? He's not actually attacking you.
if I
He's
I
following
have
me.
followed
I don't
Grace on the
know
street
her.
for 5 minutes yelling at her. I have. That's not physical intimidation.
Wait, hold on. Grace
Of
and
a
Jenny
stranger
Grace
did
just
it.
gave. Oh, so then there are cases where you can physically intimidate somebody without actually laying your hands on them?
Well, is it literal physical intimidation? No. Is it psychological intimidation with your physically? I mean, it's not physical. You're not blocking me, but I don't know. I don't actually. It's not physical. Literally, you're not putting your hands on me.
Anyone who's acting, any stranger on the street who's acting crazy, obviously, is creating a situation in which people are going to be concerned.
Do you guys think that like when like cowboys and like herders are like pressuring animals to move with their like body space, that they're like psychologically pressuring the animals?
We already answered this. Are we in a loop?
Just checking. Just wanted to see if you would say this.
And they're pressuring them with the threat of violence. Is that correct, Kyla?
Not usually.
No.
Usually it's
So
just
animals aren't
physical
trained
pressure.
through the use of violence. Those dogs
Do
aren't
they? Do
threatening to nip
cowboys?
them.
Oh, nip them.
Have you ever heard of breaking a horse?
Yeah. Yes. Usually it's not through violence. Like if you think like putting something on and taking it off.
Yeah,
is
it's
violence,
carrot
I
stick.
guess.
It's carrot stick, but you're saying like do this or suffer the consequences. We're not talking about animals anyways.
Well, we started by talking about physical presence of stuff. Yeah. And it's not typically through threat of violence. It's usually just like being spooked, right? Like you very rarely need to ever like touch a cow or a horse to get it to move. Basically never.
Yeah, I agree that talking with people rationally in a calm tone of voice is the best way to approach problems. However, it's not the only way.
Well,
No one's saying it's the only way. It's just the only healthy
Yeah,
way.
you are. You're saying you can't.
the only
you can't
healthy way.
rise to a certain threat. Okay, so it's the only healthy way.
Yes,
So that's where we disagree.
clearly.
And the entire corpus of psychology and human history shows that there are times when you have to raise your voice and exhibit aggressive things to prevent evil from occurring.
There
And
will
you know that
never,
true.
There will never be.
Well, I'd hate
a
to be in
case-
your house
Yeah,
if someone comes
sorry,
in and
Ben.
threatens your family because you're going to be rational. You're not going to raise your voice and intimidate that person.
All right.
Notice how
Stephen
the
speak
only
without
time you said it's
interruption.
acceptable to raise your voice is in times of like grave, like life-threatening, like when your wife is about to fall off a cliff or if somebody breaks into your house. And
But
you're
you
comparing
said
that
never.
to him.
Let's let
You're-
Stephen speak.
Yeah. When we say
You
never,
said never.
when we say never, obviously the context is in resolving
No,
conflict with
don't
a
say
partner.
never. Don't say never.
Let's let
Okay.
Stephen speak, please, Ben.
I'm sorry. Let me give all the qualifiers. Okay. You should never do it when you're trying to resolve a conflict with your wife, when you're both on the planet Earth, when the year is 2023, when the person isn't hard of hearing, so you don't need to raise your voice to communicate with them, when they're sufficiently close to you that speaking quietly, like, do I have to add like a million qualifiers for you to understand what we're talking about? Like, it's pretty obvious what I'm saying. When I say don't raise your voice to your partner, and then you go, well, what if they're about to walk into the street? Do you really think that's what we're talking about right here?
Is it wrong to be angry at somebody? And if not, is it wrong
Holy
to show
shit.
that
Whoa.
anger?
Where's
Is
the
it wrong
rewind
to-
thing? We just got
Hold
sucked
on.
back to some
Here,
dumb shit
hold
that
on.
Is
nobody
it
Steven,
wrong
said.
to
Steven,
show
sorry.
that
Let's let
anger
Grace speak now.
through yelling at somebody? Through yelling at somebody? Through showing
Generally,
anger?
yes. Yes. You
That's
shouldn't be
wrong.
yelling at
So
partners.
but
yes.
is it okay to be angry at somebody?
Yes, it is okay to be angry. You shouldn't be shouting at your partner.
Okay, what are the typical ways that we express anger?
There are lots of typical ways we express anger, but you can do it with your words. You can do it with your actions. You can do it by taking space from
No,
somebody.
anger is an emotion. So how do we emotionally express it? If you're sad, you cry. If you're angry, you.
But there's a million things you could go work
If you're
out.
angry, you what?
You could go
You can
sprint.
say, hey, I'm angry with you. That's one way to express it.
You said that's wrong.
No,
I
he
did
didn't.
not say that's
He's
wrong.
never said
You-
that's
you
wrong.
Well,
just
that's what
yelled
Steven
that.
Crowder is doing. So another W
That's-
for us.
I'm angry at
Bro.
you. You just said that. That's what he said to her. So that's abuse or not?
All
you
he
just said
did
that's
is
fine.
I don't-
express frustration.
Yeah, okay. That's all he did. I'm gonna
That's
fuck you
all he
up.
did.
It was just a feeling. He was just feeling.
Okay, see now
like
you're
he
saying now
might
you're
want to fuck
now
her up.
you're saying what the context was, and you raised your fist, and you're lying, Kyla. Stop lying about men. You
Let's-
should be in the manosphere, but stop lying about men.
Let's continue on with our super chats.
Men are not
'cause
evil, Kyla.
whatever we're talking about
true.
right now, I mean, I know what we're talking about right now, but whatever we are talking about, it's all going to come full circle because we've got lots of super chats coming in. And if you want this conversation to continue, keep the super chats coming in and we'll continue to read them and we'll continue on. So, now I have to scroll up. This is never fun. Okay, Vosh fan for $13.99 Canadian. Hey, Canadian. If following someone to continue an argument, this is kind of similar to what we just read. If following someone to continue an argument when they want it to end, is it physical abuse, then every girlfriend is it physical abuse? Then every girlfriend I've ever had should be put in jail. Stop gaslighting us. You guys are better than this.
So to
And
be
that's
clear,
at you, Destiny
I never
and
said it was
Erudite.
physical abuse. I said that he was physically imposing himself. And by the way, I would agree that if you're trying to get away from an argument with a girlfriend and she follows you into the next room, I would agree that that's abusive. Yes, you have a right to draw space between you and your partner when you feel like you are upset or emotionally dysregulated. You absolutely have. And if somebody tells you you don't, or if they're trying to impose themselves physically on you to force you to continue the argument, I would say that's an abusive behavior. Yes.
All right, over to you, Erudite. That question was for both of you.
I mean, we basically answered it. Nobody here said abuse. We said physical coercion. And if you are following around, yes, that is bad. I believe that almost nobody would be thrown in jail for following somebody around, even though it's toxic. Just because a behavior is toxic or abusive doesn't mean it's illegal.
Utterly ridiculous.
Well, let's
True.
let's continue
All abusive
on.
behavior should be illegal.
Well, let's continue on because we will have lots of open discussion, I think, involving these super chats, and that one was kind of just pertinent, sorry, to the last question there. So, Vosh fan again for $13.99 Canadian. Woo, Canadian. All right, imagine hubby refusing to do his agreed chores and telling his concerned wife he'll be back when I'm back and stranding her by taking their vehicle so she can't visit her friends or family. Lol. Lol. He adds a lol at the end. So I think that's for Destiny and Erudite. So I'm going to hand that to you, Erudite, to start.
I guess person's never heard of taking an Uber or calling a friend, which was like part of the conversation. I think it's been well said. Wasn't precisely about the car. There is questions that we have to know about the context. Like, is there only one vehicle? Is there a reason why Stephen felt that he must have the car and why he couldn't take an Uber or have a friend pick him up? Yeah, I don't know. It's just a silly point.
I don't like being misrepresented here, and I don't appreciate people acting otherwise. I hate women, and if I saw a guy that said that he wanted to leave the house and the woman wouldn't let him take the car, I would say fuck that woman. Okay, I don't have an obligation here towards women or men or hating men or whatever. Okay, fuck women. If a guy wanted to leave the house and someone said no, you're not allowed to, you can't take the car, I'm not going to let you, I would say, oh, that woman seems like she's being really manipulative and controlling. The same thing I would with Steven Crowder.
All right, well, let's continue on. Oh my. Yeah, I gotta scroll up quite a bit. Ozion talks. Hey Ozion, how you doing tonight? $10. Glad to see you're here. Ben Thorp. A man doesn't show aggression to women. A woman who is afraid of you and flinches from you does it for a reason, either because of experience or from other men, or that man. So just to summarize, that's for you, Ben. A man doesn't show aggression to women. That's the first point. A woman who is afraid of you and flinches from you does it for a reason, either because of experiences from other men or that man. Thoughts on that, Ben?
Yeah, interesting question. I do not think that violence is a good solution except in the most extreme circumstances for men with their partners or spouses or with their children. I do think sometimes it's warranted, but it's not a good solution in people who are into that. Now, I will tell you this. Women like it, and you can say what you want, but they like it. They like it more than men like it, and that's an instinct. And they like aggressive men, and they even like violence. I've never understood that, but it's there, and it's the bad boy. I'm a good boy, but I'm seen as a bad boy because in this sphere, no one can be it can be a male at all. But I never have understood it, but women love assertive men who, and it does go into violence. And I don't agree with
on our other side.
That's just absolutely not true. You see the wordplay being done here with women like aggressive or assertive or confident men. That's not the same as being physically abusive. Women do not like men that hit them.
Right. So who's watching 50? Who's buying 50 Shades of Grey, Stephen?
50 Shades of Grey is a movie.
Why was that a huge bestseller?
Because it's a fantasy. It's a movie and it's a fantasy.
Okay, so where is fantasy located? It's in your mind, right? It's something you desire. Women are not buying that.
Fantasy is different. Okay. I really like the Spider-Man and Batman movies, but I don't jump off of buildings in capes.
Well, it speaks to you in some way, and
it does.
Whatever.
Same way 50 Shades of Grey might speak to someone.
Okay,
it's
so
not
what
that
does
I
it
want a
speak
man
to?
that beats the shit out of me.
What does it speak to? It speaks to a thirst that women have to be dominated and to be powerless. Yes, it does.
Dominated and powerless in a setting with a man that you respect and are extremely physically attracted to. Not just some loser that's beating. Yeah, not some loser who's beating the shit out of you.
And you have an explicit contract with as well.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah. The explicit contract thing is what we all say to make it safe, but it's the non-consensual part of it that's the exciting part of it. I'm not advocating for it, but it is there, and I think it's a counterbalance to women having too much power in our culture, and they don't like it. And I think they want to move out of this.
Like, what do you do about like women's abuse shelters where women are trying to sneak and run away from their abusive partners because they don't know how to get away from these awful men in their lives? Do you think that these women are just like secretly lying and they're like are desperately like horny for it and they're just like hoping he'll come get her?
Well, no, obviously they go to the abuse shelters to get tips from other women for where to find all the good men.
True.
Well, are you saying that where there's situations of domestic violence, there aren't women who really feel like that's home for them and they enjoy it even though it's dysfunctional?
I like how you just do you remember Kyla, the conversation we had earlier about you provide a fundamental psychological need while also like attacking somebody at the same time, and you get like you just like describe
I'm not advocating for it.
You describe the dynamic perfectly. Yes, there are people that can be psychologically abused to such an extent that they also tolerate physical abuse on top of it, and it can make the highs that much more exhilarating when the lows are that much more horrible. We call those abusive relationships. It's like doing heroin. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also,
I
is it true that there are people who have received literally zero love in their life, so they'll take a partner who gives them like a small amount of love in exchange for lots of abuse because it's better than literally anything that they've ever experienced? Yes, that is true that this exists. It's tragic, it's awful, it's sad, and that doesn't mean that all women want that.
A lot of women would love to be with a man who is capable of extreme violence.
Capable of
To
extreme
protect
violence
They
and
find that
deploying.
fucking hot, and I'm not one of
Capable.
those men, but they love it. They fucking love it. Sorry, guys.
Capable of extreme violence is not the same as deploying extreme violence on your partner.
It's kind of hot that it might get turned on her. I'm not one of those people. I don't own a weapon. I've never.
No, that's
What do you
true.
think they're
I'm
more
sorry.
likely attracted to? The fact, like, if we're taking this premise, do you
You
think that
want
they're
all
more
but-
attracted to the fact that, like, they could fuck things up, that they're physical specimens that are impressive? Or do you think that they're attracted to the fact of, like, who knows, at any moment he might snap and beat my face in? God, I love that. Which do you think it is?
You
Both.
respect him a little bit
Both.
more because he could exert that physical control
Yeah.
over you.
I'm not advocating for it. I'm
But
just
not
saying,
you
like,
necessarily.
you should talk to women about what to do about this, because there is a tremendous thirst for this, and
There's really not. There's just not. That's just not true.
Women
Yeah,
do
so
not
women
want
really want
abusive
these little
relationships.
mouse men running around and worshiping them. They do not want.
There should be
Again,
like
the
there should be a false dichotomy.
We need a
counter
button for
where
it.
it's like, I don't think you should beat the shit out of women. Oh, so you want everybody to date Stephen Hawking then? Like, what the fuck is this comparison? Holy shit.
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not advocating. I'm certainly not advocating for violence. I don't think it's a good solution. I'm a man of peace. I don't understand BDSM, but I'll tell you, it's not men who want to do BDSM that I know of. I find it exhausting, but I've encountered a lot of women who seem like there's no end to how much of that they want to do. And you can do research on it, Kylie, like looking things up on the internet. Look it up. Look up the fantasies. Look up when women are being real. They will say there's a desire for this. And I'm not saying that I have the solution for it, but don't tell me that it's men that enjoy hitting women. I think by and large, men just want, to be peaceful.
You're right. It's women who enjoy being hit.
There are men. Yeah. I do think there's some problem here, that there's a lie going on. Yeah. Women are more okay with violence than we give them credit for. That's right. I would say that's true.
All right. Well, I'm going to
Those
step
are
in here.
all completely different statements, by the way. None of those things are even like analogous or similar, but sure, go off.
I was going to say, I'm going to step in here and we're going to keep the super chats going. Keep them coming in. We're all for it. We're having a great discussion here as far as bouncing these ideas back and forth. So keep those super chats coming in and we'll keep having this discussion go.
Just
until somebody needs to use the washroom or do any of that.
I was just going to ask a question. I've noticed a number of super chats coming in that seem to be assuming that Ben is telling the truth about like me and my platform. And I realize that the MDD fan base has probably never actually met me before. I think that I've talked to James a couple of times, but I actually haven't been on MDD. Just so it's clear, Ben is abjectly lying about my content. In fact, probably the biggest criticism I get on the internet is that people sometimes feel like I'm a pick-me because I talk so often about men's issues, right? Like that's like basically my bread and butter. That doesn't mean that I don't care about women's issues. I'm not finished talking. You lied about the fact that I hate men. You lied about the fact that I hate masculinity, and none of these things are true. And I just want to make it clear, so I realize the MDD platform doesn't actually know me, and that's
Did you accuse me of
patently false.
sexual harassment?
Absolutely.
For a sexual when we were talking about sexual preferences.
So it
and I
wasn't
asked you
just
what
that
your
question.
preference was.
I accused you of sexually harassing Nina because every single time she spoke, you kept talking to her. You kept asking her sexual questions. She kept telling you, please
What's a
stop
sexual
asking
question?
me
We were
sexual
talking about
questions.
sex.
There was tons of sexual questions. You talking about the idea of sex doesn't mean it's an invitation to ask Nina specifically about her sexual preferences and making pickup lines and alluding towards your interest in her. And so you constantly kept saying these things. There was a guy who came on the panel and asked both of us immediately if we squirted, and you.
And I'm responsible for him.
And you came on later and said that we like hard dicks inside us. Yes,
right.
absolutely.
I did not
said they were
say that.
sexually
I did not
harassing.
Say that you're lying.
Let's-
You're the fucking liar,
let's
Kyla.
try to have that
See, this is more of
conversation.
this anti-masculinity. She gets to do a whole litany of accusations to me, but I
Yeah,
can't.
come
do
on,
that.
that's
Well,
not fair.
let's
now I know what Steven Crowder feels like. Steven, let's talk. Let's talk.
Let's continue on. But firstly, let's take care of ourselves personally. If anybody needs a drink of water, if anybody needs to use the washroom, now is the time. And whoever doesn't go, I will ask the question too. You're all staying? All right, cool.
Sure.
Let's continue on. I just want to make sure that I'm being considerate of that because I know we're going a little longer than we initially planned. So if you need a little refreshment or anything like that, feel free. So let's continue on, everybody. Oh my. Yes, we got to scroll up quite a bit. Thank you all for your super chats here. I'm going to have to get rid of a few of them here so I stop going through the same ones. All right. So sorry. Just give me 1 second. All right. So, Vosh fan once again for $13.99. You got a specific currency you like to spend that in, Canadian, and $13.99. She clearly played it up for the camera, saying abuse repeatedly to save the footage for the divorce battle. Amber Heard 2.0. Grace's points are the same good points Destiny made the first few days.
I mean, I would say just by in that interaction, I would say that he's obviously, I would say she's throwing him off, and he's getting more and more frustrated because he's saying like her responses are unnatural. So I guess I would say like, yeah, I do think in some ways she was playing to the camera.
Her responses were not unnatural. It sounded like they were retreading a fight that they had many times before, probably that they'd explicitly discussed in therapy.
All right, she said she needs space, right? And then she goes, you're abusive, right? If you don't want to get into something with somebody, you don't go around calling them abusive and then say, well, I gotta go. Either you engage or you don't. She's accusing him of something that's a serious thing to accuse your partner of. And then she says, I'm leaving. This is your abuse. It's like calling somebody crazy. If you say, you know what? You're acting really crazy. There's kind of nothing you can do to defend yourself, because if you are acting crazy, you wouldn't know it.
The reality of the situation is, and this is undeniable, if one or both parties are emotionally dysregulated, then you have to take space. You are never, ever, ever healthily solving a problem between two people when there is a high degree. That's reality. That is one of the few pieces of advice that I would say.
What is emotional? What did you say? Dysregulation? What is that?
Sure.
So expressing emotions. If either of you express emotions, you need to take a break from each other. What are you, fucking robots?
Sure. So
what
if you're in it,
about?
Let's say that you're in a situation where you're really, really, really hungry. Okay. It's like the Snickers commercials. Okay. You're not you when you're hungry. Sometimes being hungry can inhibit your cognitive thought process and you get irrationally upset at everything that happens.
Yeah, but you said emotional dysregulation.
Yes,
so any
being
emotional
hangry,
dysregulation?
Being hangry is a type of emotional dysregulation. If you are fighting with a partner and you guys are coming to the level where you're screaming at each other, where you're insulting each other, or where you're acting snarky, then your adult brain is taking a back seat to your baby brain that just wants to come out and fight, and your ability to problem solve is gone.
Wait. Would you say the same about emotions? So if your partner is feeling really sad and is crying and is torn up about something, should you take a break because there's emotional dysregulation?
Absolutely. If my partner is crying,
you should not support them and have them share that emotion.
No. Hold on. Support and sharing an emotion is not trying to solve a problem. If somebody is incredibly upset and they're crying, then the conversation might be like, hey, it seems like you're really upset right now. Let's take a walk and talk about this. Or let's take a break and talk about this.
You said take a break. You said take space. Any emotional dysregulation, you need to take space from each other. That's what you said.
I need you to turn off the debate brain for 1 second and just listen to what I'm saying, okay?
You are a debate brain.
Let's let Stephen wrap up his point there, and then we'll let you respond.
When one or two people are emotionally dysregulated, the ability to solve the problem is gone. Now, what you do at that point, if it's a conflict, then you probably need to create space. But now the example you gave, if somebody's crying and needs support, then that might look like, well, we're emotionally dysregulated. We're not going to problem solve right now. I'll just support you. That would be maybe something you could do to help a partner that's emotionally dysregulated. But the crying situation is not where the conflict between the two people. It sounds like one person has a problem with something else and they just need support from their partner. But again, it would be the same thing that would apply. If they're crying, you're probably not going to be like, okay, I understand you're really upset right now, but let's figure out what we're going to do to solve this problem. It's probably like, okay, hey, let's try to bring your emotions back in line, go for a walk, take a shower, watch a movie, whatever. And then when the emotions come back down, then you go back into problem solving mode.
So can I just say something? Stephen, you said if you're really hungry, you need a Snickers bar, that you can't think straight. This is the problem with the younger generations. You have to be able to be mature enough that when you're feeling emotions, to handle them. And if you're hungry, you don't need to take a break from life. Maybe sometimes you just need to power through instead of immediately satisfying all of your needs.
That is the most toxic. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. That is the worst advice. You would never give it to anybody in any situation ever. You do not try to power through your emotions. That is the answer given by somebody that doesn't realize how much their emotions control them. Anybody that ever gives that answer has no idea how irrational they can be when they're in an emotional state of mind. If you're emotional, what you do is you bring your emotions back in line and then you problem solve. Full stop. That's the advice you give to a manager, a business owner,
this is
a
why
father,
your relationship
husband.
is so crazy in your life.
That's great.
You're not going to be successful in relationships in life unless you outgrow this immature, I need to take a break every time you get hungry and you feel like you need a Snickers, you need to go take a break and emotionally regulate. Give me a fucking break, Stephen.
Talking about anti-fragility has almost nothing to do with dysregulation, nor is anywhere Stephen saying that like people should just be anti-fragile and the moment that they have like their fifis like broken, that they should just immediately fall down on the curb and cry.
He just said
Obviously. No, he literally didn't. Obviously. He used a Snickers ad, first of all. Like, bro, context clues. What we're talking about here is emotional regulation. The idea that you should just power through and ignore your feelings is characterized as a form of dysregulation. What a healthy form of regulation is, say you're feeling upset in a situation, is you go, I notice that I'm feeling upset. And then you figure out whether or not that upsetness is something that you can tolerate. And if it is not, absolutely, you should take a break 100%, because there's nothing worse than in a conversation that's vital, like a major fight with your spouse, that you should go, wow, I'm really dysregulated and angry. I don't know if I can keep cap on my emotions and not react as a response.
Why do you have to keep a cap on your emotions? Why can you not express emotions to your partner? Because if you're angry, if you're sad, if you're happy, whatever.
Yeah.
Why are emotions negative to express?
So emotions aren't negative to express, but your partner is not a punching bag for your emotional dysregulation. That's why you keep a cap on certain things.
The emotional dysregulation.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, right? If I'm
so you are responsible
enraged,
for keeping yourself emotionally neutral, and
you are responsible for
all times?
Yes, you are responsible. No,
that's the ideal.
No one has ever
situation?
said that. No, you're just, again, you're doing the dichotomy game. I need to find a word. We need to actually have like a buzzword for this so we can just
you said
go
put
like,
a cap on it.
Sprogly boo. Yeah, putting a cap on it doesn't mean become neutral and feel nothing and have like false forms of stoicism. What it means is things like, wow, I notice that I'm feeling angry. Am I so angry that I can't handle this anymore? And if the answer is yes, you should leave. That would be the responsible thing to do. If the answer is I'm angry, but I think that I'm able to talk through my anger and not take it out on my partner, then that's fine, right?
But you say taking it out, but isn't being angry expressing anger? You say taking it out, but if somebody makes you angry because they did something wrong, is that taking out your anger on that person, or is that expressing an emotion that they caused within you and it's perfectly healthy?
So even if somebody made me angry and then I turn around and I start calling them names and telling them that I don't love you and that I'm going to fuck them up, yes, even though they made me angry, it doesn't change the fact that I'm responsible for my actions and my behavior, and it's still inappropriate of me, even if they made me angry.
What if you turn around and yell at them because you're angry? And you express your anger like every normal person does. Is that wrong?
Or not, it's yelling at the problem is whether or not it's here's the question. What is your goal with expressing the anger in a relationship? What do you think the goal should be?
Anger means somebody has done you something wrong. Somebody has done you wrong.
I'm going to repeat it. I don't think you heard what I said. Let me repeat it one more time. What is the goal of expressing your anger?
Okay, to show that person that they have caused you this emotion because they did you wrong. That's the goal.
And what do you want to do with that? Why do you want to show them that?
Because they did you wrong. So then you're angry because they did you wrong.
They can even either explain themselves or apologize. What are we just born 2 minutes ago? Kyla, the men who landed on Omaha Beach, if they followed your advice, they would step back and all talk to each other and analyze it. There are
Do you know where advice comes from?
Wait, hold on, real quick.
Oh, no. Let me fucking talk now.
Well, I didn't get to respond to Grace. I was in a back and forth with her. Now you just fucking hijack this just to make some autistic point about 18-year-olds that went and killed themselves in fucking World War II. Okay?
Let's just watch how we're talking about our other speakers here tonight. But we will hand it over to Stephen.
Sure. So real quick. So here's something that I noticed was suspiciously absent from when I asked you, what is the goal of showing anger? You said your goal was expressing it because they did something that made you mad and you want them to explain themselves or apologize. That is not the goal of expressing an emotion in a relationship. The goal should always be to problem solve. If your goal is anything else, then your emotions are misaligned with what you should be doing to maintain the relationship. If your goal is just make somebody apologize or make them understand how mad you are, you're not trying to problem solve and you're not trying to make a healthy, better relationship. You're just trying to attack somebody.
I can work with that. It is problem solving. If somebody does something wrong to you and you express anger, they can react to it and solve that problem by either apologizing or saying, no, I didn't do you wrong.
They're not going to do that though. They're just going to get mad back at you.
It's part of human interaction. I don't know what you're talking about.
Why do you say it's part of this is literally human interaction 101. I know this as a fucking debater. If I'm arguing with somebody and they're emotionally dysregulated, they're upset, we're not going to be able to problem solve, just like we're not right now.
Let's let Grace speak, please.
Stephen, you know what? We are at an impasse. We are at an impasse.
Watch it.
Let's let Grace speak. Sorry, what do you say, Grace?
They're just kidding. They're just
I'm
kidding.
just kidding.
Okay, let's. I was gonna say, well, when everybody's talking, I mean, there's going to be a certain amount of delay to the live stream. I've got a really good computer here. Erudite, you got your hand up there. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. I think a really
Yeah.
big thing that's missing, like when I listen to you, Grace, is that like when you think anger, you think the only respect, you think anger means must be yelling. But the answer is feelings don't dictate how you need to react to them. That is what emotional regulation is, where you go, dang, I noticed that I'm feeling angry. Like I had a fight with somebody just recently, and I noticed I was really, really angry after the fight. So rather than calling them back up and screaming and calling them names, because at the end of the day, my goal in my relationships is to have healthy, positive relationships. That's what my goal is. And part of that means solving problems, and part of that means being heard, right?
I agree with you.
Hold on. Me calling them and screaming at them and saying nasty things to them isn't going to make them heard, and it isn't going to make my relationship better. So instead, I went for a run and I yelled into the air and I did all that I needed to do to externalize my emotions. But that doesn't mean that just because I'm angry that I now need to verbalize that directly at somebody else.
I agree
Kyla,
with you.
I think let me take this one.
Okay.
I would just like to propose. I don't know your background, and I'm not interested in critiquing your life. I'm sorry if I lean too far in that, but there are a lot of people who have experienced trauma who come up with a solution like yours that I think isn't about relationships. It's about control. You never want to be out of control. I'm not saying you necessarily, but especially there are females who have experienced a lot of trauma, males too, who just want to have control. So they never get out of control because it made them feel vulnerable. I'm sorry. It's called life. It's called relationships. And a life where you have total control that it seems like you're trying to yourself go for and advocate for others is a life that is not worthy of the name of life. The drama, yes, it can get out of control. Yes, it can be too much. Yes, it could be inappropriate. It can cause harm. But it's also emotions are what makes life worth living. It's the color, it's the fragrance, it's the joy. Like you're not going to have any joys if you have this kind of, and I get it. You want to analyze everything so you'll never be in those places again. I'm just conjecturing. A lot of people do that. It is a mistake. Yes, reflect, but don't turn into a robot who can't hurt again. You might get hurt again. All of you out there watching, you might get hurt. You might get hurt in relationships. I've been hurt, but you can't turn it off and gain control. It's not going to work.
Emotions play a role in physical combat, and they play a role in things like solving problems in a relationship. And I agree, for example, all men should probably have a mature theory of violence. Men need to know how their anger causes them to want to do violence, how they need to respond to that, how to respond to different situations that might cause violence, and how they should de-escalate or possibly escalate in different situations where violence may be required. That is a dialing of their own emotional system to help them guide through what is the correct decision. That's not a negation of their anger or their frustration or their fear. It's using these emotions to make informed decisions. Just like in problem solving, you can use emotions, for example, like Grace said, anger tells you that you might be feeling disrespected. The problem is sometimes you're angry, not for a good reason. Sometimes somebody makes you mad and it's your stuff. There's no reason for you to be mad, right?
Absolutely.
The reason why in the cases of interpersonal dynamics between men and women, men have to be more careful about losing control because they're more likely to do physical harm, and society is afraid when strong men lash out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but you know why they lash out, Kyla? A lot of times it's because they don't deal with their emotions and they don't express them, and it gets bottled up and then it explodes. So men need to have.
They just power through. You're right. They do that, and that's really toxic for them.
You're twisting what I'm saying. I didn't say just power through and don't have emotions. I'm saying sometimes if you want a fucking Snickers bar like Steven here wanted, that sometimes if you have other obligations, that those you don't need to make sure. I see at least when I see young people today, they're constantly hydrating themselves. Leave the goddamn water bottle alone and do what you're doing. And you don't have to play video games while you're talking with another human being. Sorry, Steven. Just focus.
You want to know what the whole,
and financially you call me an autistic when you're
everything related to this conversation is so insane, because if you were to talk to anybody with a healthy relationship, any therapist, literally any woman, any person ever, they will tell you that in a relationship, the best types of people to be with are people that can communicate emotions without demeaning a partner, attacking a partner, screaming at a partner. These are the best people to have relationships with. They're the best problem solvers. Not only, actually, fuck relationships. Relationships are gay. We don't have to talk about relationships. This is true of leaders as well. This is true of managers in a business environment. This is true of CEOs of a company. You read How to Win Friends and Influence People. There's not chapter 14, how to call your boss a raging fucking piece of shit and show everybody how mean you are. There's no book on leadership or commanding people will ever be like that.
You're wrong about that.
Okay, well, You won't find that's not the habits of effective leaders. Nobody's
Emotionally-
like,
Secret chapter
If that's
that you
the
haven't read.
only thing in their book. You just said Steve Jobs, one of the most successful corporate executives ever in history. Okay, and I probably think he was an asshole, but he was a great, he was a great innovator, right, Stephen?
he had a good product with the iPhone.
Well, he wasn't a failure of a human being.
Okay, that doesn't mean
His
that you
relationships
model your
were failed, weren't they?
interpersonal relationships after him.
Wasn't
ever.
hold on? Wasn't Steve Jobs like alienated from his family and his daughter and everything in death?
Well, okay, all right.
So why is
Steve
he the guy
Jobs
that
is
we're
a-
he wasn't-
remodeling our relationships after?
I understand that a lot of driven men can alienate people and be too driven and lack a kind of understanding of the softer side of life. Okay, but if a woman marries a man like that, she's gonna she gets the benefits, but she's also got to deal with them. And
Okay,
a lot
then
of
the
women
man has to
find
deal
that.
with then the man has to deal with the downsides of her maybe leaving and then getting alimony and child support. That's part of your role as a man. Then I guess if that's what we're going to say how men run their relationships, and that's going to be how they run their divorces.
Well, I don't see Steven Crowder
Destiny-
doing any of that stuff. I think he's totally engaged in a normal way, and Kyla can portray it as him being a baby, but that's just emasculating another man for no reason.
I think you need to put a cap on your emotions and stop yelling at me because this feels really abusive right now.
If you were telling me that in sincerity, do you know what I would do? I would say, okay, I'll stop yelling.
But why are you yelling in the first place? Why are you abusing me in the first place?
Didn't I literally send you a DM this morning saying like, I'm sorry if I came off too harsh or whatever, like I won't be poking or prodding you on that subject? Didn't I actually literally send you that message this morning? So I do this. Like,
no, you are I'm not saying you're not a nice guy. You're a very nice guy. No, but what I'm saying is by your own logic, I'm saying you're wrong. It's fine for you to yell, but you're saying it's wrong for you to yell.
we have a different type of relationship. We're random people screaming at each other on the internet. If you were my daughter, or not to poke at your relationship, but like if you're my daughter, or if you're like my wife, or if you were like a parent, I wouldn't be talking to you the same way. There's going to be a different context for those conversations.
Yeah, Stephen, when I can say I witnessed you walking. Who is that woman? Not Kidology. You walked her through setting up her OBS on her computer. You were incredibly patient, and yet it's sort of a masculine thing. So you're saying go here, go here. I had no critique whatsoever. I thought you were just like amazingly generous towards her. In that circumstance, you weren't yelling at her. You were guiding her through it. You understood that she had some limitations, and it's not because she was female. It's just because whatever, she was a novice. I think that's true of both of you from what I've seen.
What are you?
But I think in this area of
what are you
relationships,
guys doing? Like, why are you both just like telling us that we're like nice people and stuff like that? Like all of this, like I don't know.
Because you're
Sorry.
wrong about the other stuff.
Yeah, it feels a little slimy and manipulative. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm
Well, why
not
did you accuse
interested.
me of sexual?
I like that. I like
harassment,
being
Kyla?
manipulated. Keep blazing.
How about if I say you look
Okay.
good, Kyla?
You can
Is that
slide into
sexual abuse
Destiny's
too?
DMs with them.
Let's avoid the prior discussion because, as we've already discussed, that's not what we're here to talk about. So we'll continue on with our super chats. All right. Let's scroll on up because I appreciate everybody in the live chat for coming out and putting the super chats in because we have quite a few of them to go through. So we do have a lot of conversation that's going to keep happening. And I see you there. You're putting more in there. Stop it. We'll be here all night. Okay, keep going. All right. So I have a personal question here, Destiny. We can just skip it. It's from Vosh Fan. It's related to your relationship. They're asking questions, so we can just skip that if you want.
Well, I mean, like, is it a question of like, how do I live with myself getting cucked on a daily basis, or is it a question that's like relevant to the conversation? I'm curious.
I
think
want to know about your cucking stuff. Actually.
maybe it's kind of related to. All right, I'm gonna read it then. All right, Vosh Fan, $6.99 Canadian. Destiny has never raised his voice at Melina during an argument, and Melina has never continued an argument which Destiny wanted to stop. Right?
What I don't understand what the implication is. There are mistakes that I've made in my relationship, and there are things that I do that are probably abusive. That's absolutely true. There are also times where I've lied to people. I used to steal from McDonald's when I worked with them from the cash register. I've made mistakes in my life. I'm not going to sit here and say because I've made a mistake that we ought to do it. There are things that I recognize as mistakes. If you were to ask me the next question, what are things you're trying to improve in your relationship? I would say I try to communicate better. I try to resolve problems quicker, and I'm sure the same would go for Melina. She tries to give me some space when she's pushing to resolve a dispute, and we try to like communicate in a healthier way with each other. Like these are things that we're constantly working on. We're not trying to be more aggressive towards each other or more conflict oriented towards each other. Like just because I make mistakes or my wife might make mistakes doesn't mean I'm saying that those mistakes are good. They're recognized as mistakes.
I mean, yeah, this is like max chattered energy where it's just like, oh, if you're giving the ideal situation of how relationships go, that means you've never done anything wrong ever in your entire relationship, right? It's
Yeah,
just
like imagine you're playing League of Legends. I'm like, you should try to get 10 CS a minute. It's like, why would you say that when last game you only had 100 CS at 20 minutes and you died 7 times? Like, oh, never mind. I guess that's what you're supposed to do. I don't understand that. Yeah.
I don't know
What are
your
you
nerd
talking
language.
about? I have no idea what you're talking about.
All right. Well, we can continue on. Let's see here. Now, if you didn't see off to the side here, I can see that there's 1,000 people watching tonight, and there's only 250 likes. So I don't know if you've got arthritic wrists or what's going on there. That's my usual go-to dad joke, but like you know, maybe you got some like real problems with your thumbs, but it's right below this video. You hit the like button and it does help, but not as much as sharing out the video. And once again, thank you to everybody here for showing up. And it looks like Erudite's given herself a mustache there with her own hair. Very stylish. Excellent. That's the look right there. So let's continue on with our super chats. And I will say anyone's that's sending in a super chat that is personal, I am going to check with each debater before we talk about it. I know we are talking about relationships and behavior and stuff like that. I use that term because we are going to read a super chat that is involving that. So once again, try to keep the super chats, light and loose and not attacks against our speakers.
You're welcome to give us any attacks, at least me.
Well, I'll read them, but to a certain degree. So
Up to
same
you.
cloth, $5. What's the relationship you've seen / had with your parents, Grace and Ben? I'm seeing you leaving space for narcissistic behavior. So we'll start with you, Ben. If you want to talk about your relationship with your parents, that's up to you.
No. I think the question is saying, what is your relationship with Grace, with your parents, right? No?
I think it's to me.
I
What
was
is
going to
your
say, it just
oh.
says Grace and Ben, so I think they're asking each of you.
Oh.
So it's up to you. It's a personal question. You can choose not to answer. I think they're asking Ben, what's your relationship with your parents, and Grace yourself. So if you don't want to answer that, we can just continue.
I'll answer.
Oh, okay.
I used to have a very contentious, my parents were divorced, and I used to have a contentious relationship with both of my parents, but especially with my father. And I do advocate for men to reconcile with their fathers. Doesn't mean they have to be right. It's a Jesse Lee Peterson point, but he is absolutely right. You've got to find your peace with your father and your father in heaven, and you will find all of the problems in life can be resolved. Absolutely necessary. But we still have contention. He's in the middle of trying to sue me.
Jesus.
All right. Well, any other comments on that before we get into more trouble?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that question. I've seen my parents. I mean, yes, I would say my dad is firm with my mom, and my mom got overwhelmed, and it's personal, but she left my family about 6 weeks ago and hasn't come back. So she did the same kind of thing, running out and leaving her responsibilities behind. But just because something's similar doesn't mean it's projection. But yes, there are similarities for me.
Okay. All right. Well, let's continue on. And I got to scroll up again on my notepad because who doesn't pay for Microsoft Word and has two thumbs? This guy. That's right. I really should. All right. So, moving on. Ben Thorp, a man doesn't show aggression to oh no, I think I've read that, haven't I?
Yeah, I think we did that.
Yeah, I scrolled up too far. This happens every once in a while. I said I'd get rid of these, like I delete them, but then I didn't. Yeah, let me scroll way down. Perfect. Dr. Akko, $5. There are obviously good and bad expressions of anger. Weightlifting is a good expression of anger. Beating up home. All right, that got me. I'm so sorry. All right, so sorry, Dr. Akko. You got super chat of the night. It's only $5.
Beating a what? Wait, I didn't hear I didn't hear the joke. What was the joke?
He didn't say it.
Gotta read it.
He's building up to it.
I'm building up to it. I'm so sorry. I lost it before I said it. There are obviously good and bad expressions of anger. Weightlifting is a good expression of anger. Beating up homeless people is bad. Simple.
Okay, that's fair.
True. That is
Well,
based and true.
I didn't
I
expect
think we
to
all
read
can
that.
agree with that.
Well, way to state that. All right, now let me just wipe the tears on my eyes. All right. All right. Stay curious, $5. It's easy to tell that the mod doesn't care to control the convo when he said there will be Q&A 30 minutes ago and the debate is still happening. Well, I mean,
ouch.
we wanted to
Called
keep
the
going,
fuck
you know.
They're coming after your personal relationships next.
You
That's
did get called out.
that's fine. That's fine. I'm not
How
too
could
worried
anybody
about
hate
it.
Ryan?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm a nice guy, but I you know, I think things have rolled along pretty good, and you know, as long
I
as
think
we're
you've done a
getting-
great job.
Well, thank you. I was going to say
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and you know, as long as the conversation wants to keep rolling and everybody's engaged, we got 1,000 people watching right now, so I mean, you know, I'm not doing too bad over in my corner here. I'm having a good time hanging out and talking with James and whatnot. What are you doing in the live chat? That's right. That's right. Coming at you now. All right. $1.99 from DCA. Is Ben divorced? Oh my goodness. Sorry. This is a personal question. Personal
That's
question.
okay.
Ben,
Yeah.
I should have alerted you. I deleted all the other
No problem.
ones and I forgot to screen this before I started reading. So we can read it if you'd like.
No,
is,
yeah, and it's yeah, go ahead.
is Ben divorced? His daughter and wife didn't say much.
His daughter and wife.
I'm not sure about that second part, but if you want to just talk about the first part.
Yeah, so I actually went through a similar circumstance where there was, you know, a kind of failure, I would say on my spouse's part because of prior psychological problems. And I did talk with Destiny about this a little bit, because he comes from a Catholic background, but everyone's pretty much familiar with. There's another possibility other than divorce or like staying in a that's falling apart, which I think was Crowder's kind of point. And that is that you could explore whether at the time you took the vows that maybe there was something missing that you didn't think was missing at the time. And I think it's a much healthier option because then no one has to be blamed. And, you know, it's seen as a backdoor divorce, but that is not what it is. My guess is that's what happened here in the Crowder situation. And I think it can be a wonderful solution and a real solution that avoids the guilt and blame that you see worked out here. But both parties have to want to do it that way. I don't doubt that Hillary Crowder went into this marriage fully, you know, wanting to do. She didn't go into it to do this to him, but I think she lost. Something was missing, is my guess.
Do you think that it was like more of like a team effort?
What was?
Their marriage dissolving?
It could be on both sides, but something as fundamental. Yeah, maybe they both weren't ready. And I know that they were both married as virgins, or so they claim to be virgins. And there's a problem, though I think that in many ways is good, right? You can understand it. It's like, you know, you two are bonding in a certain way. I think a lot of people go into that and they don't have enough support of a support network, of a way of working out things. And it can become kind of a torture chamber. Even a wealthy person, you know, and it kind of especially a wealthy right-wing person, they can't let the cracks show. You know, they can't say like I'm having problems. You know, there has to be this facade. And I think a lot of times, you know, it just becomes hell. He said, I have a boot on my neck, you know, and I think they probably both did in some ways have a boot on their neck of just being so I don't think marriage is supposed to be a torture chamber. If there's something seriously wrong, but people have to be honest. And I think it could be that they're both dishonest. It could be that one, right, Kyla? It could be that one person's being dishonest and saying, it's your fault.
All right, let's continue on with our super chats. And yeah, you leave me alone in that super chat over there. I'll do what I want. I'm Nova Scotian. We're badass. All right. This one's towards you, Kyla. It's kind of like a personal comment as well. Do you want me to read it?
Go for it.
It's a compliment. It says, Kyla's blush looks so good. That is all.
Paste.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I was going to say, always nice. Compliments. Ride for $10. Do Destiny and Kyla believe that a victim is abusive? Sorry. Do Destiny and Kyla believe that a victim is abusive when they fight back against their abuser? This video clearly showed Steven Crowder defending himself against his wife's abuse.
I think anyone. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say you can be mutually abusive. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have enough information here to say that's clearly what was going on, but it's possible to be.
Yeah. I think people need to be really careful about saying anything was really clear in that video. There's like some things that look pretty obvious of like being unhealthy, and then there's a lot of things that are going to be ambiguous. I don't know if it's clear to me that Stephen was just like the victim of abuse from Hillary.
All right, let's continue on because we got a lot of super chats still to read through. So Marie Woods, $2. Why is Ben? That's also a personal thing, but you know why he's asking why is Ben so fragile? So they feel like you've been fragile during the debate, Ben.
I don't have I don't know what they're referring to.
All right, we'll just continue on from there. I think they were trying to rile us back up again.
Well, if I can just say one thing about that, and I got in a discussion with Kyla, and this wasn't like anything that's contentious, but I think that sometimes men who express emotions, and clearly within this, like I think we all take it with a grain of salt, are seen as weak or fragile or womanish or these kinds of things. I think that's crazy. And I think that men who are emotionally expressive are healthy people. There are men who are less or more, keyed up emotionally. But I don't think there's anything wrong with being expressive emotionally, unless, it's sort of immature, like you're acting like a child.
Or abusive. Yeah, true.
Yeah. All right, well, let's continue on. Marriage causes divorce for €5. Stephen has lost his money, house, and kids in divorce. Hillary was asked to use an Uber. Who has really been used and abused?
I don't know if any of us have any information about divorce proceedings and how they're being finalized yet. That's still something that's being actively litigated, is my understanding.
Yeah, my understanding is in the article, at least, they talk about how she's been living in a townhouse separate from the main house. So if anything,
no, that was Stephen.
Okay, but that's fair. Regardless, it's not clear who's getting what possessions.
It would probably be half.
We have no idea. I don't know what pre-existing paperwork there was. I don't know what assets she brought into the marriage. I don't know how well off her family is. I don't know if she's been earning money or not. We have no idea.
Prenups, yeah. What'll be the marital possessions?
All right.
You can guess, but
well, let's continue on there. Scrolling up here. So Vash Stampede for $5. Challenge question to Thorps. Grace Thorp. Can a person express anger calmly? We'll start with that and we'll let you answer that and then we'll complete the second part. So to you, Grace, can a person express anger calmly? And if you could elaborate on that for our super chatter there.
I think you can express anger calmly, but you can also express it in a way where you're yelling and you're animated and you're invested. And I think the contentious thing is like that Destiny and Erudite are saying that's wrong, but showing it in a moderate way is right. And I'm saying, well, there's different ways to show it. Both are equally acceptable and in different contexts would make sense.
Okay. So the second part of that was to you, Ben. So Ben, how is Kyla lying? Provide proof, please, of your claims. If you want to remind the live chat when that accusation was made and why, we'll try to keep that quick. So do you remember when you accused?
She lied a few times or twisted things a few times, but
wait,
I don't remember
lie or
what
twist
they
things?
Were. Well, that's an interesting point because I've had this. A lie can be a misrepresentation of something that is true, right? Like in the Garden of Eden, the devil says, "Surely you will not die if you eat of the fruit." Was he lying? Not technically, because they didn't die. But the most dangerous kind of lie, the worst kind of lie, is one which actually technically isn't just a total lie, right? Even things like stereotypes, genocides are based on some kernel of truth about the group that you're talking about. And it's an exaggeration rather than an outright lie. Like you can't think of, I don't know if you can think of a stereotype where it's just an outright fabrication. It's going to be based on something. And then that's what's very dangerous, though.
So are you walking back that I lied and you're saying now that I just was hyperbolic?
No, I would call those lies. The devil is the father of lies, the prince of lies.
All right. Well, I guess I should ask, is there any comment on that on your side, guys?
On what constitutes a lie, or
Yeah, I was going to say, was there any other comments on that, or do you want to just continue on?
I don't think I have any comments on it.
All right, let's
You
continue.
don't have
on.
any proof of me lying, Stephen? You want to go at it?
But I will say, if
about
you take
something.
a lie as a fabrication, then you have not lied. I completely concede
Okay.
that.
All right, I was just making sure that we, got down to the meat of what the super chatter was.
I'm cleared of charges.
All right, excellent. Kyle James, thank you for your membership for 6 months. Awesome. You've been here almost as long as I have. $10. Ben, you and I both know that Steven Crowder wasn't abusive. He was a pansy little girl. If Steve was a real man like you, tell the audience how you would have properly dealt with his wife.
Yeah, that's interesting. If you say, like, so how should he have done it? I think he did a great job. I don't know. I think he should have been more suspicious that she was setting him up. But this is the problem with men. We're nice. We don't think that a woman, while we're working and building something for them, is trying to figure out and consulting with evil people like this Yashar Ali on how to destroy us. And they do that. And she, I think in this case, did do that. She set him up. She did that right in front of the camera. She timed it perfectly so she'd get alimony. And I think for a couple of years, she'd been cooking this whole thing up. And men generally don't think women are capable of that. And they are. Red pill.
I know. I think Erudite, this was kind of her point about like 9D chess, but that's not really possible that you'd think about that stuff. But women do check out of relationships way earlier than men check out of them, before they're actually over, because I think it's kind of natural. Like, because women are contingent on men, once you realize a relationship is coming to a close, the woman generally checks out of it earlier and looks for another support, whether it's a man or whatever. So I do think it's quite possible that she checked out and was actively, whether super, super consciously or not, she was saying, like, I see that this is over and I'm making plans for the future. I do think that's quite
And there is
possible.
some evidence of that, although I don't think he was accusing her of, like, being, what's the term? Of sexually infidelity. But when if you read it carefully, I mean, if you watch it carefully, you'll see he says, the man that you see, the woman comes
we
back.
have no idea what was being said there. That's
Okay,
it's like inaudible at that point.
I'm just saying.
Let's
saying
let
you could see this
Stephen
narrative.
elaborate. We gave a bunch of time over to that side.
Well, I'm just saying that there's a vague line, like when mothers or men come back to their mothers or whatever, there's like a weird, but it's not captioned and it's really hard to hear their sayings. I don't know if we can speculate.
But
on
it does say the man that you see. And then when she says, I'll just say another piece of evidence. I'm saying when she says, oh, should I call a friend to pick me up? I think there's an implication there because he reacts so strongly to it. Is that a threat? And I think she's basically, it's hard not to read it as her saying, so you want me to call whatever the guy's name is to come pick me up? And I doubt, a pregnant woman, it's kind of inconceivable that she's going to be someone in that state is going to be sexually, but still that there was a relationship that somehow connected with this Yashar Ali scumbag.
That could have literally just been, maybe she's talked shit to friends before about Steven Crowder. That could have been
you
we
said
have
that.
no idea. Yeah.
Right. But someone who he's like, I don't want you spending time with this person, because maybe it's an emotional affair where this person is sort of fomenting her in her sort of victim mentality. You could see the narrative there, right? I mean, you can't dismiss that.
No, it's just it's a wide reach.
Yeah. I mean,
I wouldn't assume that's true. It could be. It's even, maybe it's plausible. But I wouldn't just like outright make that assumption.
Well, there are things that don't add up here. Like, why would he say, I can't call my friends if you take the car? That doesn't make sense, but it's
maybe he means like call his friends to go over. They're just mad. He's just saying random shit. It could have misspoken literally.
Well, I can't be here. He said, I can't be here.
It could have been because of COVID. Maybe because of his surgery, he had to be like maximally isolated for a certain amount of time. So he couldn't like see friends or family. Like,
but
don't know.
It's just weird.
No
it's just
idea.
Weird. What I'm saying is you can read it in this way.
You could read it one way to paint Hillary as this like nefarious actor who is plotting 2 years in advance.
Yeah.
Right? I don't really know what you mean, Grace, with like women check out first. I don't know if you're talking about like how women initiate divorces first. I'm not really sure what you're citing there as like women always check out of relationships or consistently check out of relationships first. I'm not really sure where that's coming from.
I think it's generally true because women are contingent on men for, like, generally for financial support, that if they realize a relationship is going downhill or if they intend to end the relationship, they emotionally check out earlier so that they can emotionally and whatever else support, like connect with somebody else to be their support. So that's why I would say when she's talking with him at that point, that it had gotten to that point. So he's still emotionally invested, whereas she's kind of like, you can see she's cold to a level where she doesn't even really get riled up. She's just like wants to get out of there, right? She's checked out. That's the point I was making. I think it's possible that she could have been in that place.
Yeah, I think that's true. Look for a plan B. She's got to look for a
Possibly.
plan B.
Like she was calm and highly submissive. I don't know if I would agree that she was like clearly checked out. She was avoidant. She was trying to get away, but I don't know if I would be like, you can tell that she was just like emotionally disengaged from the situation. I would say that that's like definitely not true. There's like definitely times where you hear her kind of like pleading and stuff like that, that it seems like she's like pretty emotionally connected to the situation. She's just maybe at worst highly avoidant and wants to get away from the situation.
The problem is
No.
we have no idea how these two normally resolve conflict, so you have no idea how to read that. If you saw me acting that way in a fight, I could still be totally plugged in. If Melina was acting that way in a fight, she's probably 1 foot out the door, because Melina tends to be more emotional fights and I tend to be more like I'll zone out or I'll be avoidant. So you have no idea in looking at like a person's reactions, like if they've completely checked out or not, because we don't know how they normally resolve conflict. So I don't think it's fair to say like she's ready to run. No, you can't guess. You truly don't know. You have no idea.
You guys
whatsoever.
felt free to guess, and Kyla called Steven
hold
Crowder
on.
a piece of shit.
Because some of the behavior that he's exhibiting is clearly abusive
No, it
behavior.
isn't clearly. No, it
Okay.
not
All right.
You already conceded that we won the debate, so why?
Oh,
we
true. My bad. I
rehash it?
forgot. My bad.
We
I
forgot.
I
I forgot.
Several L's. We've got several W's over here.
Let's continue
I'm sorry,
on.
guys.
Without any direct declaration from either side, let's continue on with our super chats because we got lots of them. Keep them coming in. I mean, nobody has said anything about having to go yet. So, I mean, everybody seems to be having a good time. You can let me know. Yeah, all right. We'll continue on as we are. Psychor for $10. You guys are all misunderstood. They're not talking about abuse. They're talking about Crowder's abuse. When he's using his apps to persuade his wife. Biggest misunderstanding on modern day debate. Psychor.
Thanks.
Well, let's continue on from there.
No comprendo.
Yeah, all right. He's making jokes. It's fine. Brian Stevens, $2. Thank you so much. Sometimes it is warranted. Horrific. So when he says sometimes it is warranted, he's talking about violence. So I think he's quoting something that you said yep. So I think you got some thoughts there, Ben?
Yes, I know that people said a man should never lay his hands on a woman, right? Now, would Steven and Kyla both agree with that?
No, because now you're going to say, what if a woman is trying to murder all 70 of her children,
Right.
or a woman is running on her
Right.
way to push the button to fire the nukes to Russia? In that case, you should probably kill a bitch. Okay?
That's right. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So.
Right.
Yeah. No,
Right.
I won't make that mistake again.
Or
I don't
she's
want to take any more
physically
L's.
assaulting other people.
Yes, Steven,
Yeah.
if you're in a debate, maybe you shouldn't use terms like always and never. So
True. Absolutely. Because you might be debating the most
cavalierly.
pedantic motherfucker on earth. Don't make that mistake. I got it. Don't worry. I'm here. I'm here for you.
These are tips for you, Stephen.
Steven,
Write them
we
down.
don't need to do
I got
that.
it.
We don't need to do that.
Well,
You know, you guys have like difficulties with emotions. If I compliment Kyla, she says I'm a scumbag. If I
She did
correct
say
her
that.
because she's been lying, she's acts like a victim, and she goes, "Oh, I guess I've been exonerated." Why don't you learn how to behave like a mature person?
You saying we guys, and then everything you said is targeted against me. It
Let's-
sounds like this is just between me
let's-
and you.
let's
Well, Steven does his little thing like, "Oh, whatever you need from me, I'll give you."
let's try to
There you go.
not
Now Stephen's catching the strays.
make our comments towards our other speakers who have respectfully chosen to be here tonight.
I
in
appreciate
the live
that. They've
chat-
given us a great opportunity.
Yes,
Going
in,
back to
in
the
the live
point-
chat as well, and the speakers on the panel, we're going to do our best to keep our discussion about is Steve Crowder innocent, and that's what we've been talking about. So let's continue on with our super chats. I'm trying to copy and paste here as I go, everybody. So bear with me. Alan for $20. There's 4 layers. All right, you can all hear me. That's good. Alan, $20. There's 4 layers. What is said? what they mean, subtext, and context. A person can say, I don't love you, and it can sound like an attack or a genuine expression. I feel like this argument keeps jumping between those 4 layers. And to specify the 4 layers that Alan put in his $20 super chat, this is a $20 super chat, so we'll give it some attention here. 4 layers is what is said, what they meant, subtext, and context. Let's kick it over to Steven to start.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I guess it's hard. I can't tell with our interlocutors here, like how much of this needs to be explicitly laid out, because it seems like they want to dance between a lot of these different types of subtexts. Like if you're in therapy with a significant other and you're trying to work through problems and you're like, listen, I don't know if I love you anymore. That's a lot different than being in the middle of an argument. We're like, I don't love you anymore. Which is also a lot different than being in a serious discussion outside of therapy. We're like, I don't think I love you anymore. All of these things are completely different. But in the context that it's being said with Crowder and his wife, it's not being said in a way to genuinely convey an emotion. It's not being said in a way to resolve conflict or anything. It's being said as an aggressive point of attack to try to trigger the other party because they're just looking to attack each other. Or at the very least, Stephen Crowder's looking to attack Hillary Crowder.
I totally disagree with that. She goes, I love you, I'm committed to you. He goes, I don't love you. That's the big problem. You've never shown me love. You just, I don't exactly remember, but he says something like, you just say you love me, but you don't show it.
You don't do A, B, C, and D. That's
how is that him trying to, like, I think when we say missed trying to hurt somebody, violence, right? How is that trying to hurt her? He's pointing out an issue in their relationship. He says that's the big problem. He's literally trying to solve a problem. I don't see how you could possibly say that's like a pointed attack to hurt her.
So
Wow.
if I'm in a big fight with Nick, right? And Nick says, Kyla, I still love you. And I go, I don't love you. And I've never experienced love from you. Do you think that that's going to like feel good? Or do you think that might be like super hurtful for him?
Who cares what feels like? What if it's true?
Well, she was literally just
but
talking
it
about
depends
harm. She was just talking about harm, which is about like feelings, right?
Well, can I ask a question?
You're a loser.
Well, yeah, your feelings
Well,
aren't the most important thing, Kyla.
Well, if you say something purposefully to hurt somebody's feelings, that's I would say that's wrong to do. But if you say something that's true that ends up hurting somebody's feelings because they don't want to, it's a hard reality, that doesn't make it abusive.
In
Well,
that
what about
situation,
this?
did Stephen Crowder sound like he was trying to communicate an uncomfortable truth that they needed to work through? Or that,
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Absolutely, he did.
Okay.
He didn't
Well,
raise his voice. I mean,
I still don't understand that.
He
If you
wasn't
guys think this,
snarky.
because you guys want to do this, if you want to think this, that's fine. But then why are you mad at Hillary for leaving? Why would you stay with somebody that doesn't love you anymore?
no,
Because
her
she
leaving,
needed
I'm
to,
saying,
she needed to make sense of her situation.
Stop. I need you to answer that question. Why should she have stayed there? Why are you upset that she
I did
left?
answer it.
How is she made sense of this situation? He said he didn't love her, so she left. Isn't that what she should do?
She needs to make. There's a little more to it.
No, there's not.
Yes, there is.
What? He doesn't love her anymore. She should just leave.
Well, he's saying, okay, so is this abusive to say to someone, you say you love me, but your actions
We're not
do
talking
not
about that right now.
seem- Oh, yes, we are.
No, we're not. He said, I don't love you anymore. So she should be like, okay.
And then
cool.
he
And
said,
then
wait,
leave.
then he clarified it by saying, you say you love me, and I ask you to do A, B, C, and D, and you don't do any of them. I think that is a perfectly philosophically astute point. If love does not manifest itself in action, but you just keep saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, that is not love, that is manipulation.
Sure,
And
but
for
why would you do
someone to
anything?
point that out is perfectly fine.
Sure, but why do anything for somebody that doesn't love you anymore? You should just leave. At that point, it's over.
He's
What, is he
saying,
gonna try-
he's
is she
saying
gonna
there's
try
a
to make
major
him-
crisis here. There's
No,
a
there's no.
major crisis here.
That's not a crisis. That's the relationship is over. I don't love you anymore. Oh, okay, fine. Then we're done.
No.
Divorce.
You
time.
think relationships are, I mean, I don't know exactly what he meant by that. I don't feel love towards you. I think is what he meant. That's not the same thing as love. I've fallen
okay.
out
So
of love
now
with
we're
you.
getting hyper subtextualizing the everything. Okay.
well, yeah, because if you define
Well, I
love
don't
as
know,
like
Stephen.
wanting
It's
the
called
best,
interpretation. It's what we're doing.
if you say
Okay.
love is wanting the best for somebody else, I don't think he's saying I don't want the best for you. But if you interpret love as like I feel connected towards you and like we're working together,
Just so it's clear,
Then,
we're not talking about what happened between Stephen Crowder anymore. We're just like you guys are
Yeah, I
just
don't know what
making
we're
up
even
stuff. We're just
talking about
making
then.
up.
I
shit
wouldn't have a problem if
about,
he said,
what
I hate
love
you,
could
Hillary.
Maybe
I
mean in
hate
different
you.
contexts.
I
Okay.
wouldn't have a problem with him saying, I hate you for what you were doing. I
I'm
wouldn't
going to
have
be
any problem
totally
with him saying
honest.
that.
I'm going to be totally honest. I hate you is probably a less hurtful statement to a partner than saying I don't love you.
Well, you know what really sucks is someone saying I love you while they're preparing to destroy you. And I think that's what was going on there.
Okay.
Wasn't he talking
And
to the
playing
voice
to a
lawyers
camera.
first?
Yeah, he was.
Oh.
let's continue on with our super chat. All right, so let's scroll up. Brutally honest. That's kind of a personal attack. €2. Thanks for your donation. That's great. 3,000.
Wait, who is it a personal attack on?
Towards Ben, and we're not going to read
okay.
it. 3,000
That's fine.
GTV are for $5. What are Grace and Ben's opinions on inter-family relationships and the implication of that power dynamic? That's a strange question.
Inter-family? That would mean between families. Intra-family be within.
As I say, if you want to just skip this one, we can.
I'm sure they're meaning within families.
I think, yeah, they're asking what your opinion is on inter-family relationships. So, like, I don't know.
That would be between families. I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
Intra-family?
I'm
probably
sure
a good
that's what
idea.
they're talking about. Yes, they're probably not being pedantic about words.
I think.
So they're using words inaccurately, and then that's abusive also.
They're being very naughty by using words inaccurately. Yes, that's true.
I think what they're implying. I mean,
it's called the English language. You should respect it.
We can just skip this one because I think once again we're going into territory.
But I wouldn't know what it would mean. Intro. What are you talking about?
I would say what I think they mean.
What is power dynamics really? Like,
I think what the host is trying to say is it sounds like they're making an incest joke. That's what it sounds like they're saying.
I will just say yes. That is what it sounds like they are trying to imply there. So we could just skip that because I don't think that's relevant.
No, we can't skip that. Fuck you for saying that. Whoever said that.
Well,
and fuck you people for not pushing back on that.
We're not going to. We're just going to move past it. Thank you. Psychor, $10. You guys are all misunderstood. They're not talking about abuse. They're talking about Crowder's abuse. We already read that. Let's move on. I might have copy and pasted that once or twice because I'm trying to keep an eye on this live chat because you guys keep putting more in there, and I got to keep copy and pasting them before I lose them because they escape me if I don't. All right. Killian for $20. I have been married for 20 plus years and have never yelled at my wife or called her a name in disagreement. We have a fantastic relationship and screw like teenagers. Thorp's our relationship. Yeah, I'm not going to read the rest of that, but they're basically saying they've got a great relationship and they don't think that you're representing relationships well. So you can comment on that.
I that's cap. You've been married for 20 years and you've never yelled at your wife. That's not possible.
I think it's possible.
You've never raised your voice at the woman that you share your life with. What?
There are plenty of people that have relationships like that. There are tons of people that have totally boring and healthy relationships like that. Absolutely. And there are a lot of people that yell and have problems too. Just depends on the dynamic. Yeah,
there's different personality types. It's possible, but I doubt it.
Do you never yell at I would ask him, have you ever yelled at your kids either? Or that's also, you've never yelled at your kids because everybody yells at their kids.
There's lots of families that
different
just, like, yelling doesn't
styles, there's
happen.
different cultures. There's different cultures.
Okay.
Remember, Grace, we used to go and see at the beach, we used to see sometimes the Guatemalan families. They just seemed very placid. They didn't seem.
Yeah, but sometimes they yell at their kids. Well, whatever.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure they didn't mean that literally, but.
All right,
whatever.
let's continue on. €5 from I. That's a great Black Sabbath tune, by the way. It's very hard to find, but if you just type in the letter I and Black Sabbath, great song. All right, can the pro Crowder team answer if they think Hillary is abusive in the clip and give a specific example?
Yeah, I mean, well, I would say to me, she seems disengaged. She lies to him. She says she's committed to him, which is just a way of making herself look better and driving him crazy by not responding to the genuine problems he's pointing out by just saying pious phrases to make him feel like he's the bad guy and he's yelling at her when she wasn't committed, divorced him a couple months later. And I don't think she's necessarily recognizing what she's doing, but I would say it is abusive.
She never responded to anything that he said.
Yeah.
And then she accused him of abusing. How is he going to respond when she accuses of him? Stephen, this is abusive. What are you supposed to say at that point? What can a man possibly say?
So she disengaged, lied to him, accused him of abuse, and that's like clear evidence. Do you guys feel like it's clear or like how confident are you in this, like, percentage? I'm just not sure. And I'm not asking that condescending. I just don't know how strongly you think that she abused him.
100%.
Bam. Shut down.
Grace, 100% as
Abusive,
well?
abusive in the sense that you're yes, that in the sense that I don't think she's intentionally trying to harm him. Well, actually, I mean, I guess I actually do, because she was aware of the camera. So, I'm trying to be generous, but like, I do believe she was aware of that camera and saved that clip. So if you look at it through that perspective, then yes, it's abusive. She's
So
trying
she
to
was
wind your
100%
husband up.
being abusive?
Yes, in some ways, yes.
From
She
No,
was.
you just changed it. You said 100%. How sure are you that this was abusive? Now you're saying she's 100% abusive.
No, not she. She was being abusive. 100%. Was all of her activity 100% abuse? No.
Yeah, well,
Right.
that's
You
what Kyla
believe,
did.
you
She
believe,
changed
you
If that's the
believe, you
clarification.
believe that she was being abusive 100%. So, like, being disengaged, lying, and accusing him of abuse is sufficient for her to be abusing him, but him, like, saying, I'll fuck you up, I don't love you, and like being uncompromising isn't him being abuse. I'm not really understanding these two
The
lines.
answer to the question is yes. Right. Yes.
Within the context of her sitting there framing him, driving him crazy to make him look bad, and disengaging herself personally, and then using that clip against him 2 years later, yes, it's abusive.
Damn.
All
Okay,
right.
but him, like, being pressuring or like moving his body in ways where she's feeling physically coerced, or like being unwilling to compromise with her on anything, saying things like, I don't love you and you never show me any love, trying to pressure her to stay home when she wants to leave, not really being okay with her leaving, those things.
Right.
Clearly.
Those are not
Nope.
abusive.
Not
Right.
abusive.
That's
Is there
correct.
any example? Can we
Obviously.
think of an example of a man being abusive where he's not hitting the person?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you give me an example? I'm just curious.
Taking out your anger at somebody for something they didn't do, somebody else did to you. Like lashing out at them to take your anger out, something like
So
that.
as long
there's
as-
obviously a bunch of examples.
So as long as the thing you're complaining about actually happened, you have carte blanche to express that any way you want, as long as you don't hit the person.
You mean having a disproportionate reaction? Yeah, sure, that's true. I told my son once I was in a stressful situation. He got a yo-yo from Toys R Us when it still existed, and it broke. And I told him to throw it out and throw himself out while he was at it. That's abusive, definitely. I apologized to him.
Why would that be abusive?
5 minutes later, because I was just frustrated by the situation, and there was a lot of chaos. And I just bought him a nice yo-yo, and so I had my it wouldn't have been wrong for me to say, like, why'd you break it? So what happened? But I was I was abused. So sure.
All right.
So we answered your question, but you guys never answered our question. Another win for the Thorps. It's been a 100% win on this
W
side.
after W after W.
Yeah.
It feels
Hard
like you
to
guys have,
argue
like,
with.
basically Darvoed. Like, I feel like actual Darvo. You're just Darvoing for Crowder in this case.
I don't know what Darvo is.
Well, we're
Deny,
gonna take
accuse, reverse.
we're gonna
Oh,
Uh,
so we're abusing you now?
we're gonna take
No,
a sidestep.
That's not what I said.
We're taking
So we have Stockholm syndrome from
No, I
Stephen
said you're
Let's-
Darvoing for Crowder.
We're going to take a
I don't know.
sidestep and keep on point here. So, Doey Head, $5. Thank you so much for your super chat. Why does every conservative talking point can simplify to conspiracy? I think that's towards Grace and Ben there.
Well, I'm not a
Even-
conservative, so I don't know.
Well, but I mean, yeah, me neither. But like, even if you say, okay, she wasn't conspiring to do this, even if you just look at it, just the video itself, I honestly see a man who's frustrated trying to communicate an issue he has with his wife, and his wife not responding to any of his questions, not getting emotionally invested, but just kind of saying, repeating his name and asserting that she's going to leave. And I would say, that you don't have to necessarily say that she conspired to say that at the very least, he's not being abusive by bringing up an issue in their relationship. That's not abusive.
Like, there was a point made about this. Like, you guys know Fresh and Fit. They took the most extreme take on this. We do not represent the most extreme take on this, because they're like red pillars, and I think they're just anti-female in some ways, but it's subtle. But they made a big deal about the edits and how she worked the edits. She didn't work the edits. I know there was a guy on your stream who saw that. It was just a clip. She didn't work, she didn't, that would be a conspiracy theory that was disproven. Right. We all agree that it had to do with the Ring video having a motion sensor.
Yep.
Yeah, the security camera. Yeah.
So that seems like, because it was at exactly 30 seconds, you had your guy do it. And so.
All right. Well, let's continue on from there. And I will remind everybody in the super chat, there's 900 of you watching, and there's still only slightly shy of 400 likes. So, well, I don't know what you guys are doing. I don't know if you're disliking this, but surely you agree with somebody here. Maybe you agree with me. Maybe you like that Black Sabbath tune. I don't know. But surely you agree with somebody. So smash that like button and share this out to your contentious spaces so we can keep the conversation rolling. All right, Jerome Bentley for $10. Is physical violence necessary in a marriage? Are there times where you must hit your wife outside of self-defense from physical violence, like the times you hit mom and broke her glasses?
This is a fake account. That's supposed to be my son.
Yeah. Let's just respond to the first point. Is physical violence necessary in a marriage? Let's just cap it at that.
I would say, yeah, absolutely, it could be. What if somebody had implanted a bomb in your wife's arm and the bomb was about to explode and you had to smack her arm to like disarm the detonator? I would say that in that sense, you should probably use physical violence. Was that a good response, Ben?
Well, okay, I know you're trying to play a little trick with me. There are times when a man can give a woman a smack across the face because she's losing her mind, and it can reset her in a way that she needs to be reset. If there's an emergency she needs to deal with, if there's a plane about to crash into a mountain.
Oh, there we go. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, save you.
In the
She needs to fucking get herself
You've got to
together.
fly the plane, woman. You're
the only one that can pilot.
Yes.
Well, do you agree with that?
Yeah, maybe
There
she
can
used
be
to be
an
a
emergency
pilot,
in which
but she
she's
got into
panicking
a
and
helicopter
she needs-
accident 20 years ago, and
She's
she's not.
amnesic.
Yeah, she didn't remember how, and she's like, "I don't think I can do it." And he's like, "Wake up, Jane! It's you're
But
the
her
only one
name
that
used
can
to be
fly
Jenny.
this- Yeah, you're the only one that
She'll
can fly
only-
this plane."
Yeah. True.
So you
And she'll
agree with
only
me?
remember
Another
that
W
she was a
over here.
pilot. If you hit
Another
her.
You agree with
W.
me? Another
Yes.
W over here. Okay,
Absolutely.
great. So let's not say a man can never put his hands on a woman, and a father can never put his hands on his children in violence, because that's not true. And it's stupid to say things like that.
True. There's a lot of planes out there that need pilots.
Stephen, why don't we engage sincerely instead of being snarky? Okay.
Because you're
I haven't
giving
made
me
comments about
literally
your
the
hair.
funny, the
I haven't made
dumbest,
comments about you wearing a t-shirt
because
to a
when
debate.
somebody
All right,
asks
let's
if you can
just be
slap
fair.
a woman, they're not saying, "Is it so she can
Let's-
pilot a plane?"
let's just
In the
be
course
fair.
of normal day-to-day life. Well, you should force an answer. I want to hear an answer from that. Do you really think it's okay to smack a woman if she's not acting right?
I will inject.
I think there are times when it is
appreciate the
appropriate,
question.
yes.
I appreciate the question. But I will say that everybody's been a little snarky tonight. But I think Ben just said that he thinks that's appropriate in some cases. So I'll let him elaborate on that, and we'll kick it back to you, Stephen.
Yes,
you
there are
elaborate
times like that. They should be minimized, but there are times like that, and they're not as infrequent as we'd like to say. Now,
Are there
you want me
situations
to say
outside of
something
plane
illegal?
that
I
you
just
would
gave
think
you an
of?
example. Let's say there's a situation where, like, children need to be, taken care of in a certain way, and a woman's just freaking out, and she needs. Yeah, I would call it a physical correction.
I can't think of a time where I'm like, "Mom, like, help your kids." My brain, I can't.
Well,
think
you
of that
realize
now.
you're putting me in a difficult situation because you're telling me to advocate for something which is against the law. So
If you think
so you want to play games, we'll play games. The
Okay,
answer
if you
is
think it's a
yes.
difficult situation to be asked if you should hit a woman, I mean, that says more about your position than mine. But all right.
Well, everybody
because,
can. I mean,
because
it's
I'm
not
not
just
going to
for.
advocate for
Here's
illegal
one.
activity. But
Here's
we
the
all know
only
yes,
situation
yes, yes.
let
theoretically
Erudite-
I can think of.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's let
I'll try to
Erudite
be good
finish
faith.
up this point, and we'll move on.
Say there's an intruder in your home.
No, oh come on. Don't even entertain this. This is so dumb, right? That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, if your wife is acting like a bitch, smack her across the face till you wake her up. That's what he's essentially saying. Okay, which is a
Yes,
fine
I
position to
know.
have. Listen, okay, I'm pro hitting women sometimes too. So based, all right. Another W for the Thorps.
All
Thank
right.
you, Stephen.
All right, let's just move on from
Sometimes
there.
we just need a little reset.
Harkness loves you. $10. Question for everyone: if a family was running a restaurant and a parent, like a mother, yelled at her child for messing up food prep, that's not abuse, right? She's driving her employee hard, right?
Well, when It's an inside.
These are all
whatever.
trolls. That's
Yeah.
trolls. Whatever. Take their money and
It's different to whatever with a child than an employee. But whatever. Stupid.
yes, it could be appropriate and it could be not appropriate.
All right. Well,
Would you guys, if I could throw this over to Stephen and Kyla,
okay.
do you respect a father or a boss who holds his kids to high standards and holds them to the same heights, him
That's
or her?
what none of the conversation has at all.
Okay, I'm
tonight
just
been about that.
asking, Stephen.
I'm not
you don't have to
answering.
feel
I'm not
like
answering because we're
everything's
not
a
talking
personal
about holding
insult.
anybody to a high standard. It's not a personal insult. No one is talking about holding anybody to a high standard. We're
I'm
talking
just-
about
I'm
issuing
just
physical
curious.
corrections to partners.
I'm just curious.
We can have a separate conversation about, or Kyla can answer. Okay. I'm not here to talk. I don't know what that question has anything to do with. It doesn't resemble anything about any of these.
Well, a lot of times a demanding boss or a demanding parent can be a good thing.
All right,
demanding
so-
doesn't mean attacking somebody. That's the
Also,
opposite of a good
verbally,
leader.
how
Also,
are you
just to be
demanding
clear-
except by demanding, verbally?
Authoritarian parents are like very well established to be highly harmful. They're not even talking
I
about
agree.
smacking their parents. Having really, really, really high standards that are
Yeah.
really rigid and you hold
Yep.
people to them tends
That's
to
what
crush
everybody-
people.
Yeah,
It's
I
pretty
agree.
awful.
Let's- I
yeah.
agree.
So
But that doesn't mean you have to have no standards.
obviously, I would never agree that a boss or a parent needs to hit their child to get them to meet expectations. And even outside of that, even the framework you're giving, empirically, we know that authoritative parents are awful for children. They're
Yeah, I
not
agree with
good
you.
for flourishing. So,
But that doesn't
no.
mean you can't hold high standards.
We should all hold high standards for everybody. I don't think anybody disagrees
Yeah.
with that. So I don't even know what
Well,
the point
she
of the question
assumed
is.
because I didn't say authoritarian.
I didn't assume
I didn't
anything.
say, do you endorse an authoritarian parenting style? I said, do you think that it can be a healthy parent who holds his kids to high standards and also especially in employment where it's voluntary? If you're getting paid well, you should, belly up. I think there are
I think
different
more of the time,
styles.
it's probably not that healthy.
Yeah.
Based on the way that you're framing it.
Okay.
All right, let's continue on. Thank you everybody for your super chats. If you want to keep them coming in, we've been going for 3 hours, but we're continuing on. We're having a good discussion as far as I'm concerned. We're keeping it as chill as we can, given the nature of this discussion. So, Mohammed for 550 Canadian. We're gonna skip that one. That's for Destiny. You might have seen it in the super chat, but we're just gonna skip it because it's
Wait, what's it about?
not relevant. It's not relevant to the
Why,
discussion.
was it like an insult that you think I can't handle? Or was it about something totally unrelated?
All right. Well, then I'll you know what? I'll read it, but I'm gonna give it the attention it deserves. Okay. She is a pregnant you Smurf. Regardless, Crowder is a better human than you, and that's an insult.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
There you go. I'm sorry, Mohammed. That wasn't a very respectful comment. I didn't want to read it, so we're going to move on. Stay curious, $5. Grace, do you believe anger is always justified regardless of if the other person doesn't understand how and what they did affected you?
Of course not. You can be wrong to be angry at somebody, either because of a misunderstanding or because you're taking something out on them. Obviously, right? We all know that. Or if they don't understand what they did to make you angry, you can't just lash out at them. I mean, does anybody disagree with that? It's obvious, right?
I think we all agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's continue on. Let's move on from there. Once again, try to keep our super chats related to the topic and not attacks against our speakers, but rather the things that they've said. Grace, do you believe, and this is from Stay Curious for $5. Grace, do you believe anger is always justified regardless of if the other person doesn't understand? Oh, I already read that. Let's
Yeah, we
move on.
just
Yeah. Giving it far too much drama.
I thought I was losing my mind there for a second.
Yeah, I was gonna say I gave it far too much drama for what it's worth. I'm trying to get rid of them as they come because I got far too many on this this notepad right now. You'll notch 517 $4.99 for each panelist to answer. What is your definition of emotional intelligence? So emotional intelligence, we're gonna try to keep this quick. Grace, I'm gonna hand it to you for 30 seconds.
I would say emotional intelligence is understanding and being able to control your emotions to a certain degree, but also knowing when it's appropriate to express your emotions and not lashing out at people and not bottling things up.
All right. Well, that was less than 30 seconds. We'll hand it over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, I would say it's understanding your emotions and being able to understand other people's emotions. So having some level of self-control and then being able to interface and communicate with others.
All right. Over to you, Ben. Emotional intelligence. What's that?
Yeah, yes, the same. Just being able to see your emotions in the light of reason and prudence, and then to exercise wisdom.
All right. And to close this out, not so erudite. Emotional intelligence. What do
I think
you define that as?
everyone summed it fine enough. Yeah. I concur.
All right. Let's continue on then. All right. Good meme. New member. $25 Canadian. Question. When Grace was experiencing uncertain feelings with her dad, she went to her Discord maybe to bring it up. I don't know what that's all about. There's an extra part to that. It's kind of a personal question. Do you want me to continue?
I mean, sure, go ahead.
Why did she take a step back to evaluate instead of talking to her father directly? Why is a space there okay? Or why is space okay there? Sorry, on the channel you were talking
Well,
about.
sometimes, me and my dad have a relationship. We do a lot of YouTube stuff together. Sometimes things get tense between us, and sometimes it's best to take a break and get some space and think about other things or ask other people to help you if you're, in a tense situation.
I would say
Get
that
out a
the
little bit.
position that we are holding is not that a break is never a good idea. That would be a straw man.
Right. But I certainly would hope that I wouldn't use taking space as a power move to say, like, I'm leaving and I'll be back when I'm back, because I actually do help around the house with my siblings and stuff since my mom isn't here. So that would be a power move. So I don't think doing stuff like that is okay, but taking space is fine. Yeah.
Let's continue on with our super chat then. Mr. Cool Dude. Mr. Cool Dude. You're very cool. 203 as well. All right, so $10. Ben seems to want to talk about Kyla way more than Crowder. I think they're bringing up the discussion from the other day. So we should move on from that just because we've majoritively tried to ignore that whole discussion. But
I think Tyler, I think Kyla and I are friends. I don't
know if I would say that. That's okay.
Well, I'd like for us to be friends, but you accuse me of stuff all the time.
Yeah, it's okay. It's
because you lack maturity. It's fine. We'll work on it.
Frenemies? Can we call it that? Frenemies?
No, I think we're like acquaintances in the same space.
Well, we have a little bit of chemistry, and I'm not suggesting anything beyond just that.
I think it is definitely nerve-wracking to be around a pretty young lady in the same panel, for sure.
Oh, well, thank you. No, I'm kidding. All right, let's continue on. All right, Griffin, $5. Do you think being chronically divorced gives you bad opinions? Or is that inconsequential to your takes? I'm not sure who that's for, honestly.
Yeah, I would think people who've been divorced many times would not be the person you're going to turn to for advice, but they also can have a lot of wisdom if they've learned from those things. So obviously you don't go to a homeless person and ask for stock advice.
All right, let me turn my mic back on because I had a vicious cough just now. That almost went down the wrong tube. All right, let's see. $5 from Straight Shot to the panel. Who does Zelda go to if Hyrule is in trouble? TOTK, 4 days and wake up, boy. All right, let's continue on. IG Burr, $5. Ben, if your wife was singing karaoke and went home, with him, what would you do?
Yeah, that's another personal troll.
Yeah, I was gonna say that seems like a troll comment. I was gonna say any of these comments that they don't seem like they make sense. We're
Yeah.
just gonna move on. I'm so sorry. I appreciate you guys putting in the super chats. You know, that's awesome. You can continue putting in super chats. But you know, if they're gonna be just trolly comments, we're gonna just move on. So Sausage Lord, $1.99. Welcome to the Orbiters Club, Ben and Grace. I'm not sure what that means either.
Weird.
I think it's a reference to Destiny.
There's a contract coming. They get workers' comp.
Okay. Well,
So far, we have 0 from it.
all right. Well, let's just hope. Let's just hope that that's
Bad
all
boss.
understood. Mr.
power
Cool
dynamics,
Dude,
really.
Mr. Cool Dude, where are my shades? I'm so sorry. 203, $10. How is it personal to ask why Ben keeps quipping at Kyla?
Damn.
It relates to the current debate.
I'm
he's-
sorry. I'm a heterosexual man. I'm sorry. Guilty again.
All right, let's just leave it at that.
I'll compliment Destiny. I love your blue hair. You seem like a sweetheart.
Can anyone
Thanks, man.
compliment me, for fuck's sakes? Anyways,
Ryan, you
let's-
seem like a terrific guy. I really love you.
I'm not supposed to swear. Oh God, I'm gonna get in trouble. Anyways,
I think Grace is doing a great job.
All right, let's continue on. All right, so how is it personal to ask why? No. Mark, $5. Hey, Mark. She might be a manipulative a-hole for all we know. So might he. This debate is void of details unless you have Crowders in the room. Do you guys think that's true?
To some extent, we're all speculating. Yep.
Yeah, I think that both. Although I know I'll be seen as a scumbag for saying this, I think that both Stephen, Bunnell here and Kyla have been really good about saying that there's just a lot here that's speculation, and there's a way in which this can be. These are real people with real lives, and we should at least be aware that we're missing a lot of context. But I do think you can take guesses.
All right. Well, let's continue on, and we just copy and pasted another super chat that was way too big, and it messed up my whole note. So let me just minimize that. Timothy P. Southwick, $20. So we're gonna give this a little bit of attention. It's a big super chat. What business? What business is it of any of y'all's? I feel like he's from somewhere that I live now that he's saying y'all all the time. What do they matter, y'all, personally, that you sit here saying whatever regarding them? You said that twice. So I'm going to read this again at the end of this because this is a little confusing and I want to surmise. Are y'all personally involved in their situation to be saying anything? So what business is it of any of y'all's? What do they matter to y'all personally that you sit here saying whatever regarding them? Are y'all personally involved in their situation to be saying anything?
I mean, they're public figures on the internet, and now this issue has been made highly public. So, of course, people are going to have opinions about it, right? That's kind of how it goes, yeah.
I think especially when an issue, we all, not all of us, but many of us have spouses, and so you can see, it's like Dr. Phil. Can it be helpful sometimes to see a dynamic that Dr. Phil is analyzing? Yeah, it can be. I think that Steven Crowder's impetus was not to do this, and his wife made it public. Should everyone continue to respect his wishes? I don't think that's possible at that point, and everyone knows it. And it can be fruitful. I think we've had a fruitful discussion. I think you guys have. Do you guys feel like your time spent with this makes you feel dirty? I think it's okay.
No, because I feel like we're treating him more like like the situation more like a model. We're not really saying these people. We're just saying kind of they're representing a dynamic that we're analyzing to see whether it's abusive or not. We're not really making moral judgments on these people themselves because obviously we don't really know.
Yeah, I think so.
Any thoughts, Destiny or Erudite?
Yeah, this is a conduit to explore what we think are healthy or unhealthy dynamics.
Yeah, exactly.
And Erudite? Any thoughts? No?
Sure.
All right, let's continue on then. I won't put you on the spot like that. Let's scroll on up. And if I have to keep scrolling up, I'll have to keep making noises. David Drew, $10. Ben, do you know the difference between BDSM and spousal abuse in the form of domestic violence? Ooh, we're gonna have to put it on. We're gonna have to put it on PG-14 plus here for this one. Ben, do you know the difference between BDSM and spousal abuse in the form of domestic violence? And to you, Ben.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yeah.
All right, let's leave it at that then. That sounds about good to me. We won't get any more into depth. Justin Mead, $5. I just got here. What's the issue and who are the panel? Well, Justin Mead, we are discussing whether Steven Crowder is innocent in this most recent video of him having a discussion with his wife out on the patio. So, I got into the mic a little extra for the proximity effect. But that's what we're discussing tonight. And that's my super chat. So I'm going to back away and we're going to keep going. Accelerati, $2. Destiny and his sister, Erudite, did well tonight. So you guys have a fan. Thank you so much for that. Toxin_AV, $4. UN Geneva tweeted incest in peace yesterday. I'm not sure if that's relevant to what we're talking about, so sorry, but we're going to continue on. Jay for $4.99. Earlier, when Ben went on his schizophrenic rant about women, I don't like reading those types of comments, but earlier when Ben went on his rant about women that like being abused, can he clarify if he was talking about his wife or his daughter?
No.
All right, let's continue on. Brian Stevens for $5. Okay, I'll read it. It's a little spicy. I think it's towards the comment that you made earlier there, Ben. But I'm going to give you the floor to explain to Brian here what you meant. He said, "This is disgusting behavior. A woman is freaking out, in quotations, and you physically correct. There are times when you should slap your wife? You sicken me." I put the emphasis on there to show that there's a question mark. So I'll let you explain, Ben.
Yeah. It's interesting. Sean Connery died recently, and he was old school, but I think we could all say that he was obviously seen by women as one of the most attractive men to ever walk the face of the earth. And he was pretty open, and it was partly cultural that about this, that there are times when that is those things are fine, and women do generally understand that to be true. Yes, I don't know. There is something about that. Steven admitted it himself, right? And he's willing to...
I did not say that ever. I have never said that. That is not true.
All right.
Yeah, you did.
I did not say that women ever like, or there's something about a guy that hits a woman that women are enjoying. I've never said that.
You said, yes, you did. You said, I get it.
I said I understand why women like people that can be physically violent or physically assertive, to have the capability to do that. That's a lot different than hitting a woman or hitting women.
Well, okay, so you don't think there are any women who, in certain contexts, see it as
in
like
certain contexts is doing some really heavy lifting there. In certain contexts, in like consensual bedroom related BDSM things, maybe, but that's a lot different than somebody that is issuing a correction to a woman. No, I don't.
Well,
think
we all know that's not true, so whatever.
Okay, well, that's fine. Just don't say. I just don't want to be taken as somebody that thinks that you should hit women.
Yeah, but yeah, okay, but so there's one thing about saying like I won't say this because it's going to get me in trouble, and there's another thing of saying like I actually believe this, and so. Right. There are things you can't say.
You've made a lot of references to my platform, so I know that you know who I am. So I don't know why you would ever accuse me of not saying something because I think it'll get me in trouble.
Well, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
That was heavily implied by saying, I know there are things you can't say. I can say whatever I want. I'm on kick.tv.
No, you can't.
We can start reading my... What do you mean I can't?
Can.
What do you think I couldn't say if I believed it?
Well, you couldn't advocate for the overthrow of the United States.
I'm pretty sure I can. What do you mean? You didn't even choose a good
Okay,
example.
try it on your stream after.
Wow, we should overthrow the United States. Who wants to do January 6th next year? What do you mean?
Yeah, well, Stephen, I mean, obviously, if you say it like that, you're clean, but I'm not going to encourage you here to create a situation in which you're committing a federal felony, but you can do that on your platform if you want to.
Okay, thanks. So now we're going from unpopular opinion to advocating for crime. Yeah, I can't do illegal things. It's not illegal to say, I think you, if you need to hit a woman or whatever, you should do that as part of your,
well, let's just say,
like,
go ahead, you're married, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, you're married, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you said certain things on your stream advocating for something, that could be used against you if things fall apart. I don't know what your situation is, but you have to be careful as a man because things will be used against you that you say publicly, even though everyone knows they're true. So that could be true of women too, but it's more true of men. You have to be really careful about what you say.
I don't mind you taking that position, but don't ascribe it to me because I don't agree with that. And I don't believe that's true.
Well, you obviously do, but anyway.
All right.
I mean, there are certain things by TOS you're not going to say.
No,
obviously.
you're just on fucking cope mode right now because you like to smack around women because it makes you feel like a big guy. Don't ascribe that belief to me, though, okay?
Well, now you've made a bunch of assumptions.
I don't share that opinion. If that's your opinion,
let us not attack.
And I'm going to exhibit some dysregulation.
No, we will mute
say, shut
everybody.
Your fucking mouth.
No, we
Stop
will
saying
mute
that.
everybody if we get into this. We've had a pretty good amicable discussion. There's going to be none of that.
Just because you lost, it's not my fault.
We're not going to have any of this. I'm going to say that right now. So if I don't want to indiscriminately start muting people, so we're going to try to keep our comments related to the discussion and not our speakers. That is our last warning for that. So, good meme, new member for $5.50. Can a wife ever hit her husband to snap him out of it? In quotation. Is it okay for him to retaliate if she does? Same question, reverse roles.
Yes, absolutely.
Any comment from the other side?
You shouldn't be hitting your partners. It's not a good way. It's just never a healthy way to resolve. Yeah, I'm sorry, Erudite, give your opinion because I'm sure we disagree on this. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, women can abuse men unequivocally at any level as much as they would like, and that's based. And it's part of the revolution. But men must be soy cuck losers to take all forms of any sort of physical or emotional interaction from women, of course.
That does sound like your philosophy.
Yeah, I reject the premise of both of these questions. No, there's no good reason to hit your spouse to reset them or wake them up. You don't need to press reset.
What about children? Can you ever hit children?
I think there are times where a physical correction can be issued if you're in a public area. It's like a dire situation or whatever. For instance, say you're in church or you're in like a store or whatever, and a kid is being incredibly crazy or whatever you need to do. I think that there are times that it's probably understandable. But like in the household, almost never. Delayed punishment, I think, is sociopathic. So never like when we get home, I'm going to do this to you. I think is insane. But I would say
do you think there's leeway in that? Like different people could have different views, or is it like do you think
different people can have different views about cultures? The Holocaust? That's what a meaningless question.
Well, no,
different people can have different views about things. But
okay, so do you think there's no there's no like sort of spectrum, different cultural approaches? Different cultures. Different
there's tons of different cultural approaches. I probably disagree with a lot of them.
Which can be healthy.
I don't think that. No, I'm pretty sure that the research is pretty unambiguous.
So only your
about,
philosophy
children.
is. So there's no. Okay, so we all have to absolutely agree with you.
I'm sure there are cultures that disagree on rape, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say I
disagree. Well, like say the
entire
cultures. Continent of Africa disagrees with you, so they're wrong. Is that
then
correct?
I would say they're wrong. True.
Okay,
I would say I'd be very brave
and that's
in taking that position. Yeah,
and that's not problematic for you, as.
Couldn't it be that different cultures need different levels of discipline with their kids?
No, I think we're all roughly come from the same genetic stock and the same biological foundation. We all roughly work the same way. Yeah.
Okay. So you impose your ideals on the entire rest of the world.
I didn't say I impose my ideals on them, but I might judge them by my ideals. I think I'm within my rights to do that.
Well, the vast majority of civilizations throughout history have had a degree to which that's seen as normal.
The vast majority of civilizations throughout history also practiced war, capturing women, raping them, and had some form of slavery.
Right, as does ours.
I don't think that we generally approve of raping women anymore, and I don't think we generally do the chattel slavery.
And neither did they.
Well, okay, okay, based.
Do you know the origin of honeymoon?
Is this the prima nocta thing?
The king thing?
No, it's the original Viking honeymoon.
The leader goes in first, right?
No, it's where once you steal a woman, you basically take her home and you rape her for at least 30 days to get her pregnant. And if she doesn't get pregnant, she's freed. But if she does get pregnant, now she is part of your household.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys are a little bit immature. You don't have a great grasp of history. I'm not saying that the past is perfect, but you guys seem to think we're so far ahead in progress that we can just mock everything which came before us. And that is highly immature.
That's how
did.
we approach history.
I would say that, yeah, there are a lot of people. I would mock people that thought it was okay to own slaves. I would mock people that thought it was okay to do pogroms against Jewish people. Yeah, there are a lot of people in history that I would say. I'm glad we've made progress away from a lot of the things we've done in the past. Yeah, I would say.
And your idea of progress is that men and women in their marriage have sex with random people whenever they want to. That's progress. That could be questions.
True. Well, that's good. Ask questions. What would you like to know?
I have asked you questions about it. Doesn't make any sense.
Let's continue on because it's not incredibly relevant to what we're talking about tonight.
Poor Ryan.
And no, it's fun. I was going to say, we have moved on from that topic, it seems, but this is good. Same cloth, $2. Grace, can you define a healthy relationship?
I would say we're like romantically, if two people love each other, want the best for each other, can communicate, and that can take different forms. I mean, doesn't everybody? I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's a very broad question.
I completely
Healthy
disagree.
communication.
I completely disagree.
You disagree?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, it's oriented towards sex.
Well, he said
you
relationship.
described a friendship. Oh.
Well, he said relationship. I wasn't sure. I guess I did say romantically.
It is a friendship which also involves uniquely sex and therefore children and all the rest. So whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Within marriage, it said relationship. I don't know.
Well, even a relationship, even a romantic relationship is oriented towards that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you disagree.
What does sex have to do with whether the relationship is healthy or not?
You mean a sexual relationship?
Yes.
But she's just saying a healthy relationship.
So you're saying what does sex have to do with a sexual relationship?
Yeah, people were
Okay,
asking what is
that's
a
a
healthy
legitimate
relationship?
What does
how-
that have to do with being healthy?
Yeah, so yeah, like is that like your primary marker that what people are fucking, or what is the? I'm trying to figure out what your plug-in to that was. Because I thought the dono question, Ryan can remind us, wasn't the dono question like what makes for a healthy relationship?
That's pretty much the entirety of it. Yeah.
So is it just if they're having sex, or?
Well,
Well,
it depends what
they
you mean
just
by
asked-
relationship.
They just asked
Yeah.
if
They
you
just
can
said
define,
relationship.
Yeah, I was to say, can you define a healthy relationship? So, well, since everybody's had a chance to speak, we'll let Stephen finish up, and then we'll put it over to Not So Erudite to.
Well, I wanted to hear Ben and Grace's answer. I'm curious.
I understand that. Just everybody's gotten a chance to talk, so I'll let you finish what you, Stephen, would define as a healthy relationship. We'll let Erudite define that, and then we'll kick it back over to the other side, and we'll keep the conversation moving.
I'd say probably the one where you don't feel the need to issue physical corrections to your partner.
Snark.
All right, and Not So Erudite.
I agree with Grace. I think Grace did a good job of defining a healthy relationship.
I was defining it mostly between. I mean, I know I said romantic, but when I was thinking of it, I was thinking of like two friends or
I don't
like
think
just
sex
two people.
determines if something's healthy or not. I
Well,
think
I don't think-
everything
yeah.
you defined is what's going to be healthy between a man and a wife. Yes, it is true that they're also having sex, but what is healthy between two friends is also usually healthy between a man and his wife.
Yeah, I
like,
believe that.
yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
It's primarily a friendship, but it has obviously a different element.
Like the hitting the person if they're wrong part.
Oh, Stephen, will you stop? You're just obviously giving yourself more L's. You're
He's
obsessed.
sulking. He's
You
sulking.
know, they said orbiters. Stephen, you're our orbiters, buddy. So
Yeah.
start spinning, buddy. And so is Kyla, obviously.
You're spinning. You're
Yeah,
spinning
you
out
better
L's left
stay in
and right,
orbit. Don't go
Stephen.
flying out of the solar system, guys.
All right. Well, before we get into any cosmic speak, because that's the name of my band, one of my bands, anyways. It's Cosmic Breach. But the main band I've been playing in is Light and Shade. But I don't want to get too pluggy. even though I've done that before because I'm a big Led Zeppelin fan and I love singing. But we're going to continue on, and I'm going to let the live chat know that we are going to wrap things up pretty soon, simply because we've been going for 3.5 hours. We only have a few super chats left. I mean, I don't know if everybody's good to keep having the conversation if we have more super chats coming in.
I'm okay for a little while more. This is a fascinating conversation to me.
All right, if everybody's having fun as far as our panel is concerned, it's 12:36 here. My kids are in bed. My wife is, sleeping elsewhere because she's awesome and allows me to do this type of thing. I should say that because she'd rather be here in the bedroom, but you can't see it because I've got this new fancy background.
That's great. I thought you were 12 years old.
Oh, excellent. I was going to say you thought that, but I was going to say I'm soon going to be 30 and I've
Really? You look young.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, let's continue on. And once again, in the super chat, you want to keep this going? Keep the chats coming in. We've only got so much to talk about. So if there's something you think our chatters have missed, well, let's get it in that super chat and let's get it fleshed out. Cookie Blunster. Well, that sounds a little aggressive in itself. $10 for Ben Thorp. How is Hillary's situation being covered from leaving home no different than when Ben's physical attempt to coerce his son, who was on crutches?
This is another one of these.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's fine. Go ahead if people want to hear it. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, if this is something that people are talking about in your space, I mean, it might give you a chance to kind of talk about it, but we can just skip it if you want.
Well, Destiny's talking about it in his space as well.
Did you want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to talk about this and kind of help with the super chat?
Sure. But I don't know what the question was. How's it different than something else? My son?
Something about being coerced from leaving home.
Well, Hillary wasn't coerced.
Yeah, let's just leave it at that point because I don't want this to get personal once again
in
the super chat.
It's fine. I just don't think your audience is going to be that interested, but they may be. I don't know. Destiny's blowing us up.
You can talk about anything you want to right now. But I was going to say, if it's something that if you think that, I was going to say, obviously the super chatter was kind of leaning into, I think maybe, I mean, I haven't seen too much content from either side, but if that's something that you'd
have to know a fair amount of lore to get it.
Lore. All right. I like that. That. Well, that's a great way of phrasing it. Well, if you want to talk about it, we can. If we want to move on, we can do that as well.
I didn't even catch the question. I mean, I'd be inclined to just move on, but.
Yeah, let's do that. Oh, let's see here. So, Ivory, we're gonna move on from that one as well. Once again, let's try to keep it civil, everybody.
If I can take a minute, in order, like, so that I don't seem like I'm obfuscating, you're welcome to come to my channel, which is Ben Thorp without an E. And I have AKA Abel, ABEL. And I also have a Discord that's called the same, right, Grace? Mm-hmm. Ben Thorp, AKA Abel. Grace has her own channel, Grace Thorp, AKA Joan. And she has a Discord, Grace Thorp. Is that right? AKA
it's
Joan.
Gracie. It's in my about
Gracie
section
Goose.
on my,
okay. And you're welcome to contact us. I think we're in the descriptions below. Her mother also has a channel called Thorpa Tokos and a Discord, and her brother has a Discord also. So you can contact us and we're happy to answer these sorts of questions. And we are also streamers. So.
Well, we will definitely let you plug that. And with that being said, NotSoErudite, where can everybody find you? Since we aren't at our closing statements quite yet, but where Ben just took that opportunity to tell everybody where he's at. Can you tell us where everybody can find you?
Damn, I'm in such snark mode.
It's okay. Be snarky about it.
I was going to say in your mom's bedroom. Where you'll actually find me is YouTube, Kick, Twitter, kind of all the basics. NotSoErudite. That's spelled ERUDITE, and it's all one word. So if you like spicy debates and base takes, come on over.
All right. And what about you, Stephen?
YouTube.com/Destiny, Instagram.com/Destiny.
All right. Excellent. I think everybody's been properly plugged there. What about you, Grace Thorpe? Do you have a separate channel of your own as well?
Yeah, it's Grace Thorpe, aka Joan. I stream a lot. I have panels and stuff. I do reactions and dances, stuff like that. It's a lot of fun.
We're also, while we're plugging, we're going to have a post-debate on the Tom Foolery Show, to which everyone's welcome. And we have sort of, well, I'm not going to say definitely secured Milo Yiannopoulos as a debater, but we're going to rehash this in a three-way debate, positive, neutral, and negative, after this debate, if we don't die of exhaustion.
Yeah, so Tom Foolery Show on YouTube.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. And to the live chat, if any, I've seen a couple people, or maybe it's the same person, asking why I'm not reading certain super chats, is because they're just insulting things to the people that came out here to speak tonight. And we appreciate everybody who came out here to speak tonight, regardless of whether you agree with them. So I warned you of that at the beginning. So we appreciate anybody who puts money into a super chat, but if it's attacks against our speakers, that's for you. All right, let's continue on. So
we're happy with attacks. Just long, complicated questions about lore are difficult.
Something like that, right? Grace, what do you define as red flags in a romantic relationship? That's from Same Cloth for $5.
I think she just left.
Oh, she just left.
Can we hold it?
Oh, well, we'll just wait for her to come back and we'll ask a different question. It seems like most of our questions are to both of you, so maybe we should wait till
He's coming right back. Just got my own.
It's all good. For Ben Thorpe, $10 from Cookie Blunsta. How is Hillary's situation?
Good question.
My bad. Oh, sorry.
I asked about red flags. Red flags.
What was it?
What are red flags for you?
Red flags
in a relationship is what the question was.
I would say if somebody's lying to you, if they're hiding things, if they don't really want to talk, if they get distant, if they lash out at you when something else is wrong in their life, that kind of stuff. Pretty basic.
All right. And the next super chat that we had is for Ben Thorpe. How is Hillary's situation?
Was that a question? How is Hillary's situation?
That's for Ben, yeah.
Is that a question?
That's a serious question?
I think so. They're asking,
what is it? That's not a full sentence. You're missing words. How is Hillary's situation?
I think they're trying to get you guys to fill in the gaps there, but we can just move on if that's lacking too much context.
It's just incomprehensible.
Is not good. Is much sad.
Is not good, is much sad. All right, well, let's continue on from there. Let's see. $5. Everyone head to the Samoose channel.
Uber.
Yeah, we won't read the rest of that. Once again, people, keep it civil. In the live chat. $11 from Nina. Ben and Grace in the Heard/Depp trial. Depp testified that he'd removed himself from fights before those got physical in order to de-escalate the situation. Was he being abusive by doing that?
No. But I would, yeah, I mean, there's a difference between removing, I would say if your fights are getting to the point where they're going to get physical between a man and a woman, the relationship is almost guaranteed to be over. Like, if it's going to get violent. But yeah, you should remove yourself before it gets to that point. I would say. That's different than removing yourself because you don't like the conversation anymore or because you feel cornered or you want to use it as a power move. But of course, the context matters.
All right, excellent. And I've rechecked the super chat, and it doesn't look like it's too pointed here. It's just relating to the situation about domestic abuse, I think. So Ivory for $5. Grace, is it a good idea for a family member to stay with an aggressive family member if they threaten to put a fist through the family member's head?
um, I know what they're referring to. Depends if they're joking around or if it's serious. If it's serious, then no, that person sounds violent.
Okay. All right, let's continue on there. Stay curious. Can we go back to talking about Ohama Beach? JK. I'm not sure what you're talking about. If you're talking about my shirt there, I don't know. Let's.
I brought up
continue.
Omaha Beach,
What
which
i-
is the
Oh.
landing of the Allied forces in France.
Okay. I was going to say, I thought they might be talking about my Cosmic Breach shirt. I was going to say, if you want to elaborate on that, you can go ahead. But they did put.
But I think they were just kidding.
Yeah, they did put just kidding. So we can continue on. Hi, _ I'm Date Mike. Is the name of the super chatter. $10 to the Thorps. Thoughts on My Bratty Sis and channels like that?
My bratty sis?
Yeah. Has anybody seen that, or I'm not sure what that is.
It's a porn site. It's a troll comment.
Jesus.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for that. I was going to say that might expose.
Oh,
a little-
I do have a point about that. You mean that's about incest?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I don't know the background here, but Stephen, you've talked about this issue. I think. Is that a troll that told me that?
Nope. I love talking about incest.
Okay. So and
Okay.
you're just saying like
Go
seriously,
ahead.
right? Like it's an interesting topic, or is that a
Yeah.
joke?
It's an interesting topic.
Yeah, okay. And I do think that the fascination, because that's a very what is it? Like that's a very popular category on, and within porn. And I think that COVID had something to do with intensifying that. I think it's interesting. I'd love to have a talk with you about it sometime. And I understand the implication, but I do think it's interesting.
Okay.
Now that you're an orbiter.
Yeah.
A thorbiter.
All right, so where we are at the end of our super chats, unless we get anything last minute, we are going to close out. So for closing statements, we are going to do a minute for each of our panelists here, where we've gone through all of our super chats. I would say where we are right now, we should start with Grace. We'll let you start with your 1 minute closing.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. What we came here tonight to debate is whether Steven Crowder is innocent, I believe, of being called abusive or an abuser. I think our opposition essentially brought up that he was controlling, which we proved he was not, that he was unwilling to work together with her, which he actually was the one who wanted to have the conversation with her, and she was the one leaving and disengaging, that his tone was derisive, and they gave for examples that, telling her that the only way out of this bad situation was discipline and respect was derisive, when in fact that's perfectly fine to say to somebody, especially if they are failing you. They said that he was spiteful by telling her things that she was failing at, which is, it's not spiteful, it's just a harsh honesty, harsh truth, which you owe to your partner sometimes. And I don't think they would say he is an abuser, but that he displays abusive behavior. Then that they would say that's definitely true, and I would say that is absolutely not true. He is a frustrated man whose wife is disengaging, winding him up, and then later saves the tape of this argument and uses it against him to attack the father of her children and the man she married 9 years, or she was married to for 9 years, to hurt him personally. So not only is he innocent of abusing anyone, misusing or mistreating him, her, but it was also abused by his wife, saving this conversation. So Steven Crowder, if you're out there, I think it's terrible that you're being attacked by your wife. She shouldn't do this to you. Maybe it's not her fault, but you are being publicly attacked on the deepest level. She's trying to wreck you, and I think you need some feminine support in your life, so let me know.
Yeah,
Your
my
closing
position
remarks,
is
Erudite?
Yep.
Sorry.
My position's the same. I think 3 minutes is woefully insufficient to make many claims about the nature and dynamic of these two people's relationship. I think it's also important to point out that nobody actually cares about these two and their relationship. It's just a talking point. I think in this video, Steven Crowder looks bad. The problem is that might be the purpose in the video. It probably is to some degree. The issue is just because it might be the purpose in releasing the video, it doesn't mean that Steven Crowder wasn't awful in his relationship. The problem is that there's so much necessary required context. It is hard to know everything. And there's a lot of ambiguous statements made between the both of them that nobody has context for. I think it is better to probably wait for the divorce trial to go forward. If more things get released publicly, you'll be able to weigh in more clearly. But at this point, we have a 3-minute video, which is woefully insufficient for much. The end.
All right. Over to you, Ben.
I would say that my position on this issue is part of a larger nexus of positions that I would say I would call being a centrist edgelord. As a Catholic, on the one hand, of course, traditional marriage is a healthy thing, one man, one woman, and their kids. However, especially in our times, the reality is that a lot of people, for various reasons, bring a lot of baggage. There's been a breakdown of the family. So a lot of people get into want to do the traditional thing and can't actually live it out. In our society, the churches, people on the internet need to be much more open to the possibility that a lot of times people don't necessarily go into this with enough to follow through. And I especially appeal to women, including Grace's mother, who is watching at this time, to say, we do need to find a way without blaming the spouse for there to be a resolution. And there can be a resolution. It can be okay to get over your head, to find yourself in a situation that's overwhelming, and you can't just walk away and blame the other person. And there needs to be much more healing. I think divorce is a terrible curse, and I don't think we need to do it. So,
right.
And also, Steven Crowder, give me a call.
All right, let's kick it over to Destiny to close this out for 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the behavior was clearly abusive. I think that our two interlocutors here have a pretty insane standard for what they would consider abuse. I would say you have the right to walk away from any conflict at any given point in time if you're like you are emotionally dysregulated or your partner is emotionally dysregulated. And anytime you find yourself in the presence of somebody else that is constantly making you feel uncomfortable, constantly making you second guess whether you are feeling okay or not, and is constantly forcing you to take their aggressive behavior and reframe it in a way that makes you okay with it, even though you're not, I think is a surefire sign that we are probably within some type of dynamic that you not only can take a break from if you need to, but you have every right to take a break from. So I think that I didn't hear any adequate reasons given why it was so evil for Hillary to say she wanted to take a step back, other than to constantly pontificate about some situations related to Crowder and his wife giving up that we were never really given any more information about.